Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you all to the Special Committee of the Whole meeting of Tuesday, December 3rd. It is 6:30 p.m. And if I could please have a roll call, Susan.
Finkler.
Here.
Hammer.
Here.
Lawson.
Here.
Motive. Present. Reed.
Here.
Relke.
Here.
Rostad.
Here.
I acknowledge this meeting was posted and noticed according to law.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda, so I would take a motion for same.
So move.
Second.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved. Is there anybody signed up for public comment? Okay. First item of new business is presentation by Bray Architects regarding the public safety feasibility study, and I believe we have Matt Wolford here.
Well, thank you, whoever turned me on. I appreciate that. Matt, do you want to do a little intro or kind of where we're at?
So just to update the council, we hired Bray Architects earlier this year to do a feasibility study and space analysis for a potential public safety building. They've analyzed the current fire station and police station. They'll be talking about that, as well as kind of what they've found to this point.
Thank you, Matt. Does red mean I'm a go? Sorry. It should be green. All right. I'll apologize in advance. My little 12-year-olds gave me kind of a nasty head cold, so we're getting through it. But I apologize if I'm a little off tonight. Joseph Luring is joining me tonight. Joseph's an architect with Bray and has been helping and assisting through the process. So what we wanted to do is give council and those in attendance just an overview of where we're at and a little bit on where we're heading. It's important to remember that we are in the process of doing an assessment and a master plan. Nobody here tonight is saying we're doing a project, we're not committing to a site, we're going to talk about options, but I think it's important to know that there's nobody here tonight saying that we're doing this site, that site. We're just trying to get council up to speed as to the process that we're undertaking. And so Joseph, if you wouldn't mind kind of just introducing council to the facility master planning process, sure. At least the facility assessment, that would be great. Sure.
So we came out in July this summer. There was a group of us. We took a bunch of photos and some scans of the fire department and the police station. You can see these 3D models that we took back with us to Milwaukee and did a pretty thorough survey of existing conditions. We also invited our engineering partners, so we had mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineers come out and do an assessment as well. And all of this is going to be compiled in our facility assessment book, which is that nice thick bound book there on the table, but these are just sort of like a glimpse of some of the pages from that. You can see we took pictures of every corner, noticed, where there was decay, where there was wearing on materials. We did a catalog of all the different flooring and ceiling materials. We looked at the accessibility concerns, site issues, and then we graded everything, either good, fair, or poor. So it was just like a 3-grade rough grading of all these different elements. And then we put those into a spreadsheet, and we compiled all that information, and we determined these scorecards for each of the buildings. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, thank you, Joseph. I think it's important to note there is surely subjectivity here. So when you see something that you think is good and we said it was fair, there's no doubt about that. Obviously, when you walk a building, 10 people may have 10 different opinions on what is an acceptable condition. On the engineering side, actually see an MSA logo out there. They were our partner for the plumbing, HVAC, and electrical evaluation of the building. They're, from the engineering lens, have a little better ability to say these are ASHRAE, so association standards as to how long a certain type of element should last. What we tried to do with this report, and it's not super obvious in the handout you have, the document Matt has, which the city also has electronically and can definitely be shared. We're happy to have others have access to that. What you're going to see, and hopefully this isn't a huge surprise to anybody, The fire station has a lot of needs from the general facility condition assessment perspective. Plumbing, HVAC, electrical, roofs, windows, doors, ADA compliance, etc. The fire station is old. It's been taken care of as best it could. We also don't want you to think these are all just needs because they've been neglected. There's just certain things after time that just don't last, right? We've all been there. I've band-aided my furnace together for the third time. Guess what? I need a new one. We're just talking bigger scale here, obviously, than a home. But we're in the same place. I've put 2 layers of shingles on my house. Now the underlayment's also bad. So it's a full tear off, not just a repair. So please know that these are not challenges that are created because the city has neglected the building. The fire station specifically is just aged. It's aged and, unfortunately, not functional from the use perspective. It's too small in almost every area. It has challenges in terms of function and operation. It has safety concerns. And I'm not saying that to alarm anybody, but there's carcinogen challenges that we have with returning firefighters and carcinogens on their gear. How do we separate those and keep them contained in a certain area, not in the space that they're spending time? All common challenges that fire stations of your age have. So pointing those out, this is specifically facility condition, not function, operation, safety. That's a whole separate conversation. When you switch to police, it's a little different. And hopefully you're not surprised by this. We weren't either, having toured the buildings a number of times. It's a really good former insurance company turned police station. Is that fair? I think that's about appropriate. It wasn't designed to be a police station. So you see on the scorecards that there's a lot of fair and goods by comparison to the fire side, but that doesn't mean it's functioning well. We've got, I'll say guests, friends visiting the building or brought to the building that are moved downstairs, which puts them at risk and puts the officers that are attempting to move them into the building at risk. Long term, that's not ideally a sustainable solution for the police side either. We're storing evidence and other things in a detached garage. If we were in Arizona, maybe that'd be okay. We can make it work. Not ideal in Wisconsin. So not being critical of the building from the perspective of facility condition, hopefully as you see in these little scorecards, not a lot of poor, right? A lot of fair and a lot of good. But the police station lens, is much more about how does it function? Does it support our officers effectively? Does it support our visitors? Are we safe? Are we retaining evidence correctly? All the things that go into policing in a modern day. It was a great investment at the time. Is it the right 20, 30, 40-year solution for the city as a police station? Intentionally rhetorical. That's you as a council's decision to make. We think there's some operational challenges there more than they are facility assessment or facility condition challenges, if that makes sense. Again, the study's available. There's a lot of detail there. For those that want the cliff notes, we use the little dials as you just saw on the screen. You can get a quick idea, good, fair, poor. If you're the engineer that wants to read every report, you've got every single page of the engineer's documentation available for you. We're not hiding anything. We're trying to make it very interactive, very easy for those that aren't in the industry to understand and to get through and to get a quick sense or a thorough sense. Matt, if you want to jump in, please.
I'll just jump in and add that we'll get the complete facility study posted on the website for anybody who wants to look at that, whether that's council or anyone at home.
Thank you, Matt. The next piece of the process we went through was an initial space needs study. So what does that mean? What we do is we use our industry knowledge of what our current police, fire facilities, how are they functioning, how are they operating, what size spaces and quantities of spaces do they need. But then we also work with your chiefs and some of their staff to better understand how that applies to Columbus. We're not just going to pick up a facility from McFarland or Mount Horeb or Port Washington and say this works for Columbus. So we've had probably 4 or 5 meetings where we've scoured this 4-page document. It's very small on our page, don't worry. We're trying to get through a presentation. The next slide has a summary of the square footage in it for those that are more interested in the detail. But how we go through that process is balancing shared spaces. So one of the advantages, if we decide as a city to bring police and fire, and we did, just to be upfront, plug city in here as well. We're not assuming that City Hall moves. We're looking for kind of, depends how you look at it. If you want them to be together, best case scenario. If you don't, worst case scenario. We're looking for largest square footage, because our end result here hopefully is of identifying a site or sites that would function for you to potentially consider building a new facility on. And so we typically start with the largest footprint possible, which would include city. Not suggesting you have to, but there are a lot of shared spaces that could be used by the city staff as well. So you will see that on the screen: police, fire, city hall, shared spaces. And then the two that I'll quickly point out, just so you understand: maintenance, janitorial. That's every building, right? We have those spaces. It didn't really fall in one of the departments, but it would be another shared space. And then what we call grossing factors, or grossing calculation. So the square footage, as you see, then let's say roughly 19,900 square feet for police, since it's the first one. That would be the usable square footage of their department. The thickness of a wall, the vertical chase where plumbing pipes go, or HVAC ductwork goes, or a corridor that's needed to serve them. That all falls in those 3 categories of grossing, as we call them in the industry. And so hopefully you're seeing that there. We need locations for IT closets and things like that. So that's what those percentage-based numbers are. In the long run, we develop actual floor plans and we get to real square footages. But this is a great way to understand, for the lack of a better analogy, this is kind of the recipe. These are all the parts and pieces and components that we need, and the quantities of those different components that we need to serve police, fire, city hall, and shared spaces if we go that route in a facility. So that process then led to beginning to evaluate sites in what we call, these are called test fits. So we know, I'll tell you right now, they're wrong. They're not right. But before we get really serious about exploring a site, we want to at least make sure that it generally fits. Do we have sufficient parking? Does the building footprint fit? Do we have site circulation? Police and fire have unique site circulation. That's really hard. Unique site circulation requirements. We can't have responding firefighters crossing the path of departing apparatus. We need parking that is directly adjacent to, but not in the way of, departing. So there's a lot of different moving parts. We have personal vehicles. Police officers are arriving and they're parking a personal vehicle going into the building. All those different movements happen on the site. They may seem simple, and in the end they eventually will be. But we want to test these sites before we say yes it works or no it doesn't, just because of the acreage or the location. So these are wrong. These are shared just because they're 2 city-owned sites. I believe they're both city-owned, correct, Joseph? They're 2 city-owned sites. There are likely more that we will want to explore, but we wanted to give you as a council just a flavor for what the process looks like. And I'll ask Joseph if you wouldn't mind just to touch briefly on the 2 sites that we have explored to date.
Sure. So you can see them highlighted on the photograph there. There's one in the distance on James Street and one that's a little closer on Tower Drive. So the first was on James Street. This is what I believe was the former Countryside Ford dealership. And it's located off 151 here. Can you see my... Well, so what's interesting about this site in particular is that it's actually 2 sites. There's a road that bisects it. You can see it on your map up here. So I think it's Meister Drive actually continues through the parcel. And then there's a notch out where that mini storage place, that's actually not part of the parcel. So it's a little bit of a challenge. And then there's an assumption that that drive is going to continue through and connect up to James Street. So you can see that kind of jogging around the building.
The bigger challenge, Joseph, is that the parcel left of Meister Drive has been sold and it's been developed, so.
All right. Lots of challenges with this one. It's also sort of a triangle shape. So we know that there's the fire and police. The fire department, of course, has what we call the apparatus bay, which is where they have all the trucks. And then the police has the sally port where they're coming in with their vehicles. So those are sort of two blocks, and then the rest sort of infills between them. With the fire, they really need space in front and behind. So that sort of shoves it over to the left, and then it has a little bit of a conflict with the median there. Trying to be brief, but there's a lot of pieces and parts here, and this is how we're able to get it to fit. It's a little bit awkward on this site. Sure.
Yeah, before we leave that site, the other thing I would say is this is a very specific site study. The macro decision is this the right location for our public emergency facility and our emergency response center, given its adjacency to some manufacturing that has the potential for challenges that could arise, and the adjacency to the railroad tracks. Those are the two, I think, big conversations. Is this the right site? I will say on our end, we think those are some pretty big considerations and challenges, let alone the size of the site, the availability of acreage. We're showing that it fits. It's really light on parking. It's really light on site space. We're not showing any location right now for stormwater management, which will be a legal requirement, which would mean we would have to bury that, which costs quite a bit more than a traditional pond structure. So we're exploring them because they're owned. We want to rule them out potentially as viable sites without just saying, no, it's not good for this reason. We didn't think about it further. If a community member asks, why didn't you? Hopefully we can come back and say we did, and here are the 5 reasons why it didn't work for us. But think broader, not just does it fit or not, is it the right location? Is it good that we're across from a plant that could have some challenges and make our emergency operations center not usable during a challenge at that facility? And is it too close to the railroad tracks if there's a derailment or a challenge on the tracks that would prevent it from being used? They don't show up on a site plan like this, obviously, but those are other considerations that as a team we're working through. Sorry to jump in.
No, go ahead. So the second site is on Tower Drive, just zooming back out. This is adjacent to the Columbus Health and Rehab. You can see it up in the upper right of this image. And then zooming in. So this is the Health and Rehab building that's at the top of the page. And then, there's a lot more space here, so everything sort of fits a little bit nicer. Oops. Again, the same parts and pieces, the apparatus bay, the sally port, the parking, the circulation, and favored doing it on the sort of south portion of the site to get it closer to what I thought would be the primary access below. Do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, the other thing when you think sites, the ideal location is you make one, maybe 2 90-degree turns onto a major thoroughfare that gets you to the majority of your responses. This is close, but it's a little detached, right? We're not on Old 151, but it is city-owned. So that's why it's considered. There's going to be more sites we explore as a team. But just wanted to give you not only an understanding of where we've been with the facility condition report, which again Matt said he's going to share and he's got a copy in front of him tonight, the space programming process, but also the efforts that we will be going through to test fit. That's an important terminology, sites. We're not going to go do surveys and geotechnical borings and stormwater management calculations, but we want to make sure a site works before we go through all that expense of considering it. So would love, Matt, if you have anything to add, chiefs, if you want to jump in, please feel free. Obviously, you've been a huge part of this process, and if we missed anything that you think is important for council, would welcome you to join. If not, turn it to council for any questions you have.
Alder Alstad?
Back to the countryside lot, I find it a little alarming that you guys were not aware that we developed that left section. And when we hired you, that was already in the process.
Yeah, we were just using public GIS data that wasn't updated yet.
Okay.
So that's why.
And then another question I have is, the Tower Drive why would we push it to the far left, closest to the creek?
Yeah, we can go either way. There's another option back in the office that actually had it moved to the other side of the site, so both work.
Okay.
It's a very viable site from the size and dimension perspective. Is it the perfect location from a response perspective, meaning we have volunteers having to kind of come into a neighborhood to access the building and having departing apparatus make more than the ideal number of turns? No. But again, looking at city-owned properties, is it viable? From a size perspective, it feels like it is.
Thank you.
Alder Lawson?
From a response perspective, have you identified areas of town that do make more sense that has available property?
We've talked loosely, and again, Chief, I'd love you, if you jump in, if you have thoughts on response time, or Matt, please do. I think there are more parcels, and I will say, if parcels are privately owned and the city doesn't own them, we are talking about them, but we're not going to talk about them publicly because that obviously puts the city at a disadvantage. There may be a point where we want to, in closed session, have a conversation about these are the parcels we'd recommend you retain a broker to go seek on your behalf, not knowing. Hopefully the seller doesn't know that it's the city seeking them. So that's the strategic goal of not revealing those at this point publicly, because obviously if most of the time a seller learns a public entity is interested, their price goes up versus down, and we don't want to put you in that position. So there are other parcels that we're talking about internally. We just don't want to make them public at this point. Jump in, Matt, if I'm misspeaking there. But
No, you're perfectly fine. I would just add, I'm not going to speak to response times. That's why we have chiefs. I think in listening to them, it's clear, especially from a fire standpoint, that the closer we are to 151, that is the bulk of their response calls are accessing 151 to get to one portion or other of the community.
And it's also important to note that it's really fire response, not police, correct, Chief? Police, we're on patrol, we're out moving around the community already, so it really is about fire response time, not police response time.
I agree. We concern about responding, members responding past the school, and fire trucks going past the school all the time as well. So that was a concern we have that side.
Yeah, so fire, it's a little combination. If it was a full-time staff professional department, it would be a little different. But when we have volunteers coming in, then having to depart again, it's not just how long does it take for a piece of apparatus to leave the station and get to a call. It's, are we in a reasonable location for our volunteers to get from their homes or jobs to the station to then respond? So it's a bit of a twofold evaluation when we talk fire and volunteers arriving.
Alder Finkler?
Yeah, I just have a couple quick things. For the Tower Drive, I'm not going to dwell on it much because I know it's not a good option, but isn't most of that in a floodplain anyway? So we want to make sure as we're assessing, space in the future, we make sure to not, or to look at floodplain too. And then the other thing I had was, I believe for estimated square footage, can you talk a little bit more about the living quarters for the fire department since we are volunteer?
Yeah, let me grab my detail there. Yeah, so on the living quarter side, what we assumed at this point, and I'm hoping that we're at the largest square footage we're going to be, and that as we evaluate this further, as I noted before, we will find ways to save. We have 4 rooms, sleeping rooms right now planned for. And that's actually, you can't really see it, but it's highlighted here as one that's kind of still up in debate in all of our conversations. Do we need more than 4? Do we need less than 4? Do we need any at all? At a minimum, even in a volunteer fire station, we typically recommend providing at least 2, ideally more than that, because if we're in an emergency, let's say we have the train derailment happen, and we're on a 4-day event where we've got staff, instead of them coming to the station, decontaminating, going home, Ideally, you're going to provide them a place for some respite and sleep within the facility. So right now, this is not suggesting a professional department. We would need more sleeping quarters than that. It's more of the goal of providing the ability for staff to sleep in an emergency. And Chief, please jump in.
I think also below that is, we're looking at stadium life terrible that also to us, and they have sleeping quarters at their, garage, they had now, so that was a good place for them to sleep on.
That was going to be, my last question was, is it being taken into consideration for future growth in this planning for in-house EMS?
I will say yes.
Okay, it's just not in the
Is
square
in-house
footage?
managed and operated by the city or leased to another provider? That's not been part of the conversation,
Right.
but we are looking, 20, 30, 40 years out with this plan. We're not looking for 5 years or just to replace what we have today. So the actual operational piece, that's a city consideration, but the space is considering and providing the flexibility that if you wanted to bring that in-house or bring the current provider into your facility, you could.
So that would be under the fire department square footage
Yep.
estimates then?
Correct. Fire and EMS together, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, jump in, please.
Yeah, so a big thing with fire stations is the size of the equipment's drastically changed over the last 20, 30 years. Not knowing what the future looks like, and you talked about a 40-year facility, what is baked into that square footage for potential growth either of the fleet or who knows if trucks continue to get larger?
Yeah, I think we generally feel confident that, and Chief, jump in, aerials, ladder trucks, they're pretty much maxing out in terms of the length of turning radiuses and the height that our built infrastructure can handle. So I don't know that we're going to see a lot more growth in the physical scale of the apparatus. Are we going to see more specialized equipment for hazardous materials, response, all that stuff? Yes, likely. But we are significantly increasing the base space from where we are today. With reasonable growth in the community. I will say if suddenly public utilities leap 151 to the west and all that land that's currently undeveloped turns into 20,000 new homes, are we estimating this correctly? Maybe, maybe not. But I would say reasonable growth projections would suggest that this has base infrastructure to cover you for decades, not just 5 or 10 years. I think it's important to note we're not just replacing what you have. We're right-sizing for what you have today and building for reasonable growth. But I would say if Columbus is what Sun Prairie was 20 years ago, and you're suddenly Sun Prairie in 20 years, I will say, no, we're wrong. But that's just crystal ball work, right? I think we all know that's the hardest part of this is predicting what your growth would be. So assuming reasonable growth, and everybody can put reasonable in quotes, you might have different opinions on that. This should be a 30 to 50-year facility for you.
Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. I guess I've been anticipating a more extensive variety of properties reviewed. I'm just wondering, are there more that you have put a good bit of consideration into that you will be informing us about later?
There are definitely other parcels that I think we as a team, and again, Chiefs and Matt jump in, feel are great options for this facility, but they likely are not city-owned, which is why we're not sharing them publicly yet, because we want to protect the city's ability to try to, if you decide to, pursue purchasing them without it being known that you are the entity trying to purchase them.
I also, just to add, I think it's critical to identify the acreage and the type of access, the limiting left turns, proximity to the highway are the important characteristics here that we're looking for, as opposed to site A versus site B versus site C. It's getting those right characteristics, and then the hope is, as Matt's alluded to, that we're able to acquire one of those right-sized properties for this project.
I think we also feel it's important before we say, let's go out and purchase more land, that we rule out or explore current city-owned property. People are going to want to know, constituents are going to know, why didn't you build on land you owned? If we decide, again, I'm not suggesting we are purchasing other land, but if that's where we go as a council, I think we want to give you the ability to communicate that we did consider city-owned property first, and here's why we didn't go that route before we pursue purchase.
Matt, one more thing, not to put you on the spot, but do you want to talk about Bray's work with similar sized communities, either in the recent past or that you're currently engaged with on similar scopes of work?
Yeah, so we completed Mount Horeb's public safety building years ago. We're currently working with Monona, Port Washington, and Elkhorn as additional communities, and that's just in the recent past 5 years. So work a lot in this realm of public safety, and there's just the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a lot more attention placed on our public safety demands in terms of recruiting staff, response times, the demands that are being placed on our police and fire team members. So a lot of this great work, it's important work, it's important for your community, and excited to continue on the journey. Again, tonight's not a decision-making meeting, right? We're just kind of bringing you up to speed at where we're at. We wanted to bring you into the loop, and next Tuesday, is it a week from tonight, Matt, that we're going to be hosting a community meeting, a public listening session. We're going to do the same thing, just run through this similar presentation and hopefully bring the community up to speed. If they're not here tonight or not watching online, they'll get another chance to engage in the process.
Alder Ralston?
Maybe I missed it, or maybe it's in the Bible over there. All I see is the study of what we want for square footage. What is the current, what we currently have for square footage listed in there?
Yeah, that is in the facility condition assessment, correct?
And then what are we looking at for the acreage lot we're trying to nail down?
We would generally recommend you start no less than 4 acres, and the caveats are, we could have a 4-acre site, but if it has one public roadway to access, wetlands, floodplains, all your commentary earlier, doesn't have utilities, we might need more. So baseline 4 acres or greater is what we recommend, and the physical characteristics of that site, if it's got extreme topography. I don't know that we have a ton of that in the city, right? But in other parts of the state, when we go to the western side of the state, somebody will say, we've got an 8-acre site, and we'll get there and say, but 2 acres of it is usable, because there's 30 feet of topography from one end to the other, and a quarter of it is wetlands, and so it really does depend. 4-acre minimum.
Okay.
Specifically, it'll depend on the characteristics of the site.
Did you have any further questions, Alder Ralston?
I did, but
Okay.
it just it just flew the coop. Oh, yeah. I thought part of the study, and maybe it is if the other 2 buildings that you assessed, are they worth anything to us in the city in the future to turn them into something different? Are they fixable? Is that part of the book
Yeah,
as well?
it is not part of that study, and part of the problem we always have in the public sector is we go through this process and we do this report about here are all the challenges you have at the fire station. Let's say we go ahead and build a new fire station. We're then going to turn around and say, somebody want to buy this great fire station we have? And we just put this report out that says, here's all the challenges you have. In the private sector, you wouldn't release that, right? You would allow the potential buyer to figure that out on their own. So that's one of the challenges of establishing value. If we eventually, as a council, go ahead with a project, we will have to talk about what do you want to do with those facilities. Are you keeping them, selling them, demolishing them? Do you want us to include demolition to a blank site in the budget or not? So we have not done that evaluation yet, and part of it's just going to depend on, even if we did it today, if we built a new facility, let's say by some miracle you said go 6 months from now, not suggesting you would, we're still 2+ years away from even being in a position to finish that project and sell those parcels or properties. So any appraisals we would have done now wouldn't even be realistic, because they'd be 3-4 years old at that point.
Thank you.
But I appreciate your point.
Yeah.
There is value in what you have. and what you do with that should be a consideration as part of the overall calculus of whether we build a new facility or not.
Thank you.
Current fire department is 9,294 square feet, and the current police department is 5,805 square feet.
Are there any other questions tonight? Thank you so much for being here to present that to us.
Thank you, Council. I would say I was expecting how much is this going to cost, at least in the first 3 questions. You guys are awesome. Because we're just not there yet. Usually it comes up, and it will come up, and it's a huge consideration, not ignoring it. We're just not there yet as a team. So I appreciate your great questions, and hope you enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item for discussion is discussion regarding raise order for 235 West Harrison Street. Paul, I think this is yours.
It is. In your packet is a short memo on this issue. The structure at 235 West Harrison was significantly damaged in a fire a few months ago, and the city has started the process of trying to compel the homeowner to take care of the building, preferably by removing it. As we sit here today, the building is still standing. The city has went through the necessary first steps to initiate the raise order process. A raise order is a process initiated by the city to require a property owner to repair a building, especially if it is in serious damage or habitability issues or structurally unsafe. And so we went through that step. The building owner has not complied with the first notice that the city has given, and we are here now tonight asking the council which direction it would like to go to move this matter forward, if at all. In the memo, I laid out 3 options. Option number 1 is the city has the ability to simply hire a contractor of its choice, show up on the property, and take it down. If that option were to be pursued, I would also suggest that before we do that, we give notice to the landowner one more time that says, here's what's coming, and this is how many days you have to take care of it on your own. Because if the city does end up doing this on its own, the city will incur significant cost, and then will be allowed by statute to pass those costs back to the property owner. That will end up being on the property owner's tax bill, so the city will get reimbursed at some point. It's just a question of by whom and how. The second option is a variation on the first option, but that is going through the Columbia County Circuit Court to get the blessing of a judge before the city initiates the removal of the process. The benefit of doing that is that you have the blessing of a judge. This gives the landowner the opportunity to come in and object and to hash out all these issues that might that the city might not be aware of or might not know about prior to the city taking the building down. At the end of the day, the end result is basically the same. The building will be, well, the city will get an order to bring the building down, and then the next step after that is the city takes care of it. Your third option is do nothing. As we sit here today, the building is not a public nuisance, so to speak. It's a private nuisance most likely, but it's not being inhabited. There's no vermin as we sit here today. So time may not be pressing, but it will at some point. So those are kind of the 3 options that you have to consider as you go forward.
Alder Moda?
How long would it take to go through the process of getting a judge to approve?
I would say spring.
And waiting until spring approximately. I mean, as you said, right now, there's no issue, right? And vermin in the winter, they're gonna move in, but my concern is kids, right? Kids get curious. And is it in the city's best interest just to get this done as soon as possible and get it put on the tax bill? And if we do that, once the insurance company is done hashing out all of their years of whatever's going to happen, then the city would get reimbursed, right? Probably.
Well, the city will be reimbursed by either the property owner or by the property owner paying his taxes, or worst case scenario, by the county paying the tax bill if they take the property back.
Okay.
So those are, and that then creates a situation with the county not being overly enthused about doing that, but that is how this works.
Do we have an estimate, like, of how much?
Not at this moment.
Okay, thank you.
Alder Asad?
How did we get, or what brought this to light? This isn't the first house fire we've had in the city that's been damaged and left. There's a fence around it at this point by the homeowner. So how did we get to these three options?
Your city administrator asked the city attorney to draft this. My primary concern is that if I'm an adjacent property owner and forbid I have to sell my home, it's an impact to me as a neighbor, as a property owner. And, you know, we've issued notice to take down the property. It didn't happen by the date. Subsequently, a permit has been taken out, but I don't want this to be a situation where a year from now, we're still talking about why hasn't this house been taken down? And wanted to bring this to the council for discussion and direction on how to deal with this, and to make sure that we're doing what we can to ensure that the property owner is doing what we've expected of him to this point.
Do we have any conversations with him?
I'll defer that to Mike.
I did speak to him earlier in the fall. He said his intention is to have it torn down, and he plans on building a single-story home. My most recent attempt to reach him resulted in a mailbox full when I called, so I couldn't even leave a message. Like I said, a permit has been taken out. It has yet, obviously, to happen. I did also speak to a contractor that says that he's been hired to tear it down. It sounds like it very well may happen, but we don't until it happens. It's one of those things. Yeah, okay. They say they're going to do it, but we don't know until it actually happens.
Chief Weiner wants to chime in.
I certainly raised the order on him personally. He told me at that point he had plans in the works and was moving to Phoenix, Arizona.
Say what?
He was moving to Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh, wait.
I'll add here that, as we've had discussion with the council in terms of code enforcement and addressing complaints and concerns in a more timely fashion, to me, this kind of falls in that area too, that we want to be proactive as opposed to reactive in how we're dealing with these situations.
I guess I would just, I don't know. I mean, I think the fire turned into a fatal as well, correct, Scott? So I think there's probably some emotional attachment to it. So I guess I would be in favor of maybe putting a timeline. If Mike did talk to a contractor, then maybe set a timeline at that point. If it doesn't happen by that point, then maybe we step in. But other than that, I think we do nothing at this point, is my opinion.
Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. Yes, I would either be in favor of number 2, thus giving the homeowner route to have some negotiation in his timetable of getting the property taken care of. I hate to go with plain number 3, just waiting unless we have a very limited time. I just prefer getting it into the court system so the liability isn't so much on the city.
Alder Lawson?
I think that's a good point. I mean, we could start with the proceedings through the courts, if he actually does raise the property, then we can always halt that, right?
No, absolutely, and I added option number 3 because there's not I mean, this is not something that needs to be done tomorrow. And normally in a situation like this, and fortunately I haven't done this a whole lot, we haven't had to, but normally in a situation like this, if the city sees progress, we've been told somebody is going to come in and take it down, and we push a little bit and we see progress and we see progress and we see progress, that's great. Then we don't have to do anything. But the worst case scenario here is that you decide to do nothing, and then, as Matt said, a year from now, you're still sitting here with whatever you want to call it. So being ready to act or starting the process, authorizing the beginning of the process to start exerting a little bit more pressure on the homeowner to get to a result is kind of where this is going, or would like to be going. Let me put it that way.
Alder Motive?
After listening to the entire discussion here, I have to say I support option 2, as it covers the city in that we're taking action, but it also gives the current owner the option to take care of it on his own.
Alder Finkler?
When was the permit pulled to raise?
It's been since this agenda was posted.
Okay, so wouldn't that qualify for making progress? I mean, I guess, are we online already for permitting? Do they do it online? Like, how'd they get a permit? They come in, we didn't talk to them when they were in here? Like, how did that work, and how do we know that they are not going to do it when a permit has been pulled? Like, I'm seeing progress, I guess that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, my understanding is I believe it was the contractor printed the form online, printed it off, filled it out, submitted it with a form of payment, and, that either mailed it in or dropped it off, and then we have it, so.
Are we allowed to reach out to the contractor on timeline, or are we only allowed to reach out to the homeowner? Since we cannot reach the homeowner.
No?
There's nothing stopping us from reaching out to the contractor, and we can do that. We don't have any, as I've talked to Paul about this, there's really no authority we have. We can talk
Right.
to him, but in terms of keeping the process, and I agree, the court option is the best process, but we have to have something to keep this in motion so that it doesn't just drag on.
Yeah. I'm hearing that, but I'm also hearing from Attorney Johnson that typically if progress is being made, cities don't usually pursue this forceful of a way to make it happen when there is progress. So I'm wondering, okay, so I have one more question before my wonder. Do we know, like, how long it typically takes for a house to be raised after a fire, and what is our thresholds and expectations? Because I know you have to work through insurance companies. I know a lot of people just don't have it in their back pocket after their whole entire house burned down to pay a contractor out of pocket to then raise a house. So I want to make sure that we're being reasonable in our ask and in our timeline.
I don't have an answer to the question you posed. I think it's a good question. but I don't have an answer on what that time frame is.
Okay.
And it probably varies greatly community to community.
I'm wondering, if we can, and I know this is cow, so we don't like not necessarily making a motion. I think it comes back up on council. I don't know, the agenda's changed a couple times. But I'm wondering if we have, yeah, it's on the council meeting. I'm wondering if we have an option where we can pick a date as council, and if no progress is made by that date, then we can pursue the court. Like, what I'm worried about is I'm worried we're going to be taking action too quick when progress is already being made. But I also want you to have the direction as city staff to be able to act on it if you're not seeing that progress, instead of having to wait for the whole council spiel to go through.
That is clearly one of your options. To flesh out the option number 2 a little bit, if you decide to pursue the court option, I believe the process is the city will basically prepare a complaint, similar to a regular civil action. And the city will prepare a complaint alleging that the building is not fit for human habitability, explain the raise order process to date. That will get filed with the court. The second step then is to have the defendant personally served with the complaint. The next step then is that the defendant has, I believe it'll be a 20-day timeline, so the defendant will have 20 days to file some kind of responsive answer. If he does nothing, then the city will apply for the judgment granting the raise order. We'll have that in our pocket, and then enforcing it will be completely up to the city. If he does file some kind of responsive answer, then it will be in the city will be operating on the court's timeline from that point forward, which Lord knows what that will be. So I mean that's and that may be a good end result if you want to try to keep this moving forward in some way, but not too fast. So I mean these are all options that kind of get to the same place.
Alder Lawson?
I see Alder Finkler's point. I think my fear is that if we wait and say, hey, let's see if we can get a hold of the contractor or homeowner, and we do, and then they say, yep, I'm waiting for a response from, I don't know, insurance company or, you know, scheduling, whatever it is, that they'll know more in 3 weeks, and 3 weeks go by and still no action. I mean, we could play that game for months. But we could do that, but still also pursue the legal route at the same time. Whether we actually take action or not is still our choice, even once we get down the road further.
It would be perfectly reasonable to kind of combine what the two of you have said and basically and give notice to the owner that says, you know, you've got until X to do something. And we've already done that by giving him the raise order in the first place. I mean, that's already been done. So you basically would be repeating that process with a slightly bigger hammer on the backside, which is if you don't do something, here's where we're going. And we've already got the authority, you know, the three of us have got the authority from you to actually do something, which we don't have right now.
Alder Motor?
I'm fine on a compromise for setting a date, as Molly was suggesting. I just don't want to push it out too long. I want to give them enough time to get it set up. But the court itself and getting that process started and everything we have to go through that is also time for them to be working on that project too. So if they, you know, if we start the court process to show that we're serious, they still could go ahead and do what they need to do anytime, and we can stop our side of it with the court. So if we do, I am recommending that we don't wait too long before we start court process.
All the things there?
So a consideration is we are in the holidays, so we have that going on too, as we pick a date. And then also, I'm assuming we pay at filing.
Yes, you do. And it's either one, see, I'm really happy when I can say I don't do a whole lot of civil litigation anymore, so I believe it's about $200. It'll be somewhere between $200 and $300, and another $50 to $100 to serve him. And my time, 3-4 hours, $1,000 of my time to put all this together, get it done.
Okay,
I mean, I think that's that'd be about the right ballpark.
okay.
My only question for the council on going this date direction is what is progress, and defining what you feel is the correct progress towards, that the property owner is making progress, and defining that.
Right. I mean, I would like to see us try to reach out to the contractor, see if there is a timeline, and see if that timeline is reasonable. I know we don't want to punt this out again, but like, I just feel like I'm missing so much information to be able to like make a decision on this. I feel like we gave a raise order and now we're hopping to the complete opposite end of the spectrum and wanting to just tear down their house or take them to court. I feel like I'm missing so much of that, what we tried to do, other than asking them once to tear it down. Like I'm missing something there.
So, and maybe I'm missing something, but we issued a raise order that he had 30 days to raise the building. And when that doesn't occur within those 30 days, then we're left where we're not enforcing what we've sent out. And so that's why this is in front of you for next step direction.
Right. Was it typical, or for other house fires, have we submitted a raise order in that time frame, or are we treating this different than any other house fires we've treated in the past? I'm just asking, not accusing or anything.
It's the only house fire that Mike and I have been here for, so I can't answer the
Attorney
past.
Johnson?
This is the only time I've done this. So I don't know if that, I don't
Done
know.
this as in a house fire, or done this as in like gone to this step?
Done this as in this is the second raise order I've done for the city of Columbus in 13 years.
Right.
So I guess that's the best way I can answer the question.
Okay, so other people have taken care of it within this time frame in previous situations? I'm just trying to get some thresholds. I'm sorry, I'm like getting down to the nitty gritty, but I
all
wanna
fair.
know how long it typically takes for a house to be raised, and if we gave raise orders in the past. What I wanna make sure that we're doing is we're being fair to this homeowner.
We have not given a formal raise order for a house fire in the past, presumably because the properties have been cleaned up quickly.
Quick enough. Okay,
That's my presumption.
okay.
I'm going to jump in and answer sort of your question. My house burnt down when I was a child. It was uninhabitable. And I know that the city of Fond du Lac at that time did give a certain amount of time that it had to be completed in, or they were going to take court action. So I don't think it's that uncommon for municipalities to do what we're suggesting. That's just my experience.
But they gave a time frame, right?
They gave a time frame, and I don't know what that is offhand, I'm sorry.
Right, no, and I think that's, sorry, turned off my mic, and I think that's what I'm trying to get at, is like, I don't know how to pick that time frame. I'm not an expert at homeowners insurance and houses burning down and the typical time it takes to raise it, so it's like, I want to give that time frame, and I want to be compassionate during the holiday seasons to a citizen, but I don't know what that average time or the threshold or expectation that we should have on this. I'm like missing so much details. Maybe it's just because I'm a data nerd, so maybe I'll just stop, but.
When did that house burn down? I feel like it was on a football Friday, like September. Okay, so homecoming. It was not the holidays when, sorry, that's my frame of reference these days. That it was not the holidays when you issued the raise order. Like that expired prior to Thanksgiving even?
The raise order was issued October 15th and had 30 days to raise the building.
Okay. So it was not issued for an entire month past when the house burned down, and then a little more. All right, I'm also of the opinion that we should start option 2. He didn't respond. It's been more than 2 months since the house burned down. Alder Rosted?
I think, Attorney Johnson, you answered, I think it was Alder Motive's question. You said springtime. Is that to get into court, or done
Oh,
deal,
no.
signed out, we're done in court?
No, depending on what your marching orders are today, it's probably 2-3 weeks to get something filed. Once I get something filed, then, once you get something filed, then you have up to 90 days before you have to serve the defendant with the suit in the first place. So you've got a little bit of cushion there. Then once he is served, he has 20 days to answer, so you have a little bit of a cushion there. And once the service is complete, the circuit court isn't going to do anything with this until I ask them to. And then once I ask them to, then they're going to do it whenever they darn well want to. So if the defendant does absolutely nothing, then we will be entitled to take a judgment against him by default 20 days after he's been served. If he does something, then spring would be optimistic.
So 2 to 3 weeks to file, up to 90 to serve. So
Yes,
say we serve on day 1,
Right.
that puts us at 4 weeks.
Yes, which is normally what I would do is if I'm going to be suing somebody, I would prefer to get the show on the road, but that's not a requirement. I mean, we can file the suit, and it's also fairly common with other people that do this much more often than I do, where they will file the suit, and then they will send it to the homeowner and says, this has been filed, you haven't been served yet, but we're serious. Clock is running, and it's now time to do something quickly. That's another choice that you have as part of all of this process.
And then part of his 20 days, he can file against it again, correct? The 20 days he has to reply back? When you mean reply, what do you,
No, he does that one time.
but he had 20 days to do it.
He has 20 days to file an answer with the court that says, Judge, I've got a copy of this, I disagree with this, I disagree with this, I disagree with this, and then he's setting between what I file and what he files, that sets the framework for what the judge has to listen to and decide on.
Thank you.
In the years that I've been involved with the city, and there has been, several fires, house fires, but this is by far the worst. And we even have a statement that says, in the opinion of the city building inspector, that the place is uninhabitable, and unreasonable to repair. So he's already been served notice. So I would say we go with option 2 and we get the ball rolling. It's not that it's being, you're being unsympathetic, but, it's a responsibility to the area property owners. It's, the house is sitting there, yes, it's got a fence up there, but, raccoons do climb fences, squirrels climb fences, birds enter in there. It's gonna be, while it may not seem like it's infested, it's probably infested already, just for the length of time that it's sat. So that's my opinion. I think we should move on this immediately, so.
Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, and hearing none. Next item is discussion of resolution number 14-24, supporting the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, WEDC Small Business Development Grant. Mike?
Yeah, thank you. The Small Business Development Grant is a new program inspired by some COVID-era related grants that were out with great success. The WEDC director really wanted to get this new grant going to kind of show the state legislature that this type of approach is very impactful. And so essentially, it's giving great latitude to cities and other municipalities to create their own program to grow small businesses in their communities. What the Facade Plus program would do, the City of Columbus's grant application would implement a Facade Plus program, which is essentially already modeled after our current facade program, but would allow for more improvements to downtown, so that it would be a program that would just be for downtown properties in the central business district. And in addition to facades, it would also include interior alterations, safety issues, accessibility, sprinkler systems, electrical and utilities. So it'd be much broader possibilities to fund the rehabilitation of our downtown buildings, which are challenged because they are very old and they have older infrastructure and challenges. And that's one of the things that's really, really challenging for businesses to get going, is dealing with some of the improvements. The grant would be, the program, WEDC does not require a match, but we will score more points if we require a match. And as proposed, this program would require a 1-to-1 match. And so essentially, if someone wanted to max out this program, they could do a $100,000 project and get $50,000 of state funds to fund their rehabilitation of to get a small business growing in downtown Columbus. So this program, again, very similar to our existing facade program, but has more flexibility to include internal aspects of the building. So that's essentially what it is. The resolution for you today essentially says that if awarded, if WEDC awards it, it says that you support this grant application, and if awarded, you would accept it. WEDC wants to see this money spent in the first 24 months, starting in the beginning of the year. And so that it's one of the things, they want to see this money out in the community, investing in growing local economies.
Alderman?
I think we should support the resolution. I think having the Facade Plus program is an excellent tool in our toolbox, for lack of a way of putting it. I would like to clarify for citizens who might be watching this and thinking they may want to apply. They can apply for the CDA Facade Grant Program and the State Facade Plus Program, but they are separate applications.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And we would probably encourage people to apply for the Facade Plus program because that money needs to get out the door quicker and has more flexibility. But they can apply for both. So this would give an incentive for people to do projects in downtown.
Alderman Watson?
Could you remind me of the cap that we would potentially be awarded?
Oh, yeah, the total amount we asked for is $250,000. That's the maximum amount allowed in the grant application program. So WEDC could award the city that amount, or they could award a lesser amount as they go through the program and evaluation, if they want to see divvy up their funds to have more impact throughout the state. That's the kind of stuff they do think about.
Mayor Hannah?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Any other questions or comments? Everybody comfortable moving that one forward? Okay, thank you. Next item, discussion of resolution number 15-24, supporting the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation WEDC Vibrant Spaces Grant. Mike?
Yes, this is also a WEDC grant. However, it's a different grant called Vibrant Spaces. It is a grant to create special places, especially in downtowns, to kind of, because it's those third spaces that a lot of times they make communities need. And HLPC would like to apply for this grant for the rehabilitation for a portion of the Rest Haven building in Fireman's Park. We had a discussion with WEDC, or at least I did, and they said it has a shot. It definitely has a shot. If you look at the scoring sheet, it will be challenging. This is a very competitive grant, but it does have a shot. HLPC has been fundraising for the rehabilitation, major rehabilitation of the building. This would be a reduced scope that would include new front doors, handicap accessible automated doors, along with electrical upgrades. So that program, so that's a reduced scope. We came in right after this report went out. The revised electrical estimate came in much lower than expected. So while the proposed resolution has a grant request of $50,000, if you choose to approve it, it really should be adjusted to 25, because the total project cost is $50,000, and it's a 1-to-1 match in the grant. So the request from WEC would be for $25,000. HLPC has fundraised the matching dollars for this project.
Alder Lawson?
Have they raised more than that? Have they raised 50?
They have raised more than that, yes.
So, if the bids came back or estimates came back lower, then can we not add more into it to utilize additional matching funds?
Certainly could. It's a challenge because certain components you can't, it's not like, you gotta, it's a big, and that was one of the challenges of putting this together, was finding a achievable reduced scope to do that. I think, the complete remodel is several $100,000. So this is an attempt to get some of that project completed.
Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. While I definitely give my full support in applying for the grant, I'm wondering if they will consider our projects. Just looking through their gorgeous handouts, under the emboldened parts labeled the fine print, under ineligible, it includes like building improvements other than restrooms for public use. And I wonder how much they're going to be sticklers. I hope that doors are considered exterior enough. That'll be for them to decide, obviously, but yeah, there's no time to make any big changes and ask, because this is due Monday.
The 10th, yeah, it needs to be
this
submitted by the
Monday,
10th, and I think this project is as developed and scoped as the best it can be to submit to WEDC. And I think if you wish to see this go forward, you submit it and cross your fingers. Maybe you get it. I think there's a lot of people interested in the state applying for this grant.
One more question. Is this grant that has a history of being issued annually? Might there be more chances next year? I mean, I do want to get this one in Monday, just
Right, right.
For future reference.
It was issued, this program was in effect a couple of years ago, and then it was not funded, and then it came back again, and so the people that got money the last time are not eligible to apply this time because they want to spread the money around. Will it be back again in 2026? We don't know, but I think it's very popular. They might take a year off again and then come back again, and things like that, but time will tell on that one.
Alder Motter?
My questions are kind of similar to Trina's. I guess I'm questioning if this is the best use for this grant. And while there may or may not be another thing that the city wants to apply for this year, because there may not be enough time, I realize that. Does it prohibit us next year then? If they're awarded it, then the city can't do anything else. And so, considering they have the amount of funds that they have, is it may be worth holding off?
Yeah, when this grant came back, they reduced, they didn't allow previous recipients to be eligible. Will they do that the next time? Maybe. It's one of those we can't tell, but that is a distinct possibility. When you look at the program guidelines, they're really, in the scoring sheet, they're really emphasizing downtowns with this grant. And so the park is walkable to downtown, so that's the way the grant is being submitted, it's walkable to downtown to create a place. So could we use this for downtown in the future, this grant? Absolutely, but we have a lot of work to do ahead of that to get us to that point.
Are there any other questions at this time? Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. No, yeah, I definitely was not trying to prohibit this grant application from going through, not whatsoever. Simply stating that upon reviewing the application packets, I would have made suggestions for other projects for the CHLPC in applying for this grant, just to closer match what they're listing for being eligible versus ineligible.
Are there any other questions at this time? Are we
Amy.
comfortable moving?
Amy.
Oh, I'm sorry, Matt.
Just to answer and address Trina's concerns, Mike was very upfront in what the grant guidelines were with CHLPC, and I think worked with them very well to frame a project that would have a chance, but also being realistic that their focus is on downtown, and this is downtown adjacent, as we like to say.
Is everybody comfortable moving this one forward for a vote then? Thank you. Next item is discussion regarding ratification of the 2025 utility operating budgets.
On November 21st, the Utility Commission passed all three, the electric, water, and wastewater operating budgets. As part of the ordinance, the council is required to ratify their budget. All three budgets are being presented operating in the black, and a lot of work and effort went in this. I specifically want to thank Jacob Holbert, the utility director, as well as Crystal Larson, city treasurer, for their work on these budgets.
Alder Lawson?
That's still a misprint, right? It's 3%, not 83%. Yeah.
Correct.
Any other questions? Alder Rosted?
Page 38. What's the incentive under each position for 550?
That's if they get certain certifications, they get additional per hour, like 50 cents per hour, based on certifications.
The water and wastewater operators, as Molly indicated, are paid based on the certifications they achieve as part of their license.
So
If I
they can get
remember right,
up
it's
to
like a
550?
quarter of
Is that what that
certification.
means?
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions at this time? Is everybody comfortable moving that forward for a vote? Thank you. Then last item on the agenda is to adjourn. So I'll
Motion
take a
to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you. 5 minutes before the next?
Sure.
That's good. I can get my glasses.
Taken 5. Welcome, everybody, to tonight's Common Council regular meeting of Tuesday, December 3rd, and welcome to those that are watching per cable channel. Could I have a roll call, please?
Finkler. Here. Hammer.
Here.
Lawson.
Here.
Motive.
Present.
Reed.
Here.
Relke. Here. Rosted.
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I acknowledge this meeting was posted and noticed according to law.
Okay, I would look for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So move.
Motive will,
Oh.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Motive will second.
Motion by Alder Rosted, second by Alder Motif to approve tonight's agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next is the consent agenda, which is the Special Committee of the Whole, Common Council, Committee of the Whole, and Council Workshop minutes of November 19th of 2024. And then included is the street closing for the 2024 holiday parade, which will be held December 14th of 2024.
Alder Motive will make a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Alder Motive, second by Alder Lawson to approve tonight's consent agenda. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Is there anybody other than, nope? Okay. So tonight I would like to welcome Jack Rolke to give us a presentation on your Eagle Scout project and the completion thereof. So, there is a little face with 3 lines. There you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
So this is a picture that was taken after the completion of the project. I have a multitude of pictures taken to document the process in its entirety. My project was to excavate the mulch and underlying dirt surrounding the flagpole and install and embed in concrete the 5 service plaques of the United States Armed Forces and surround it with river rock. And that is what I accomplished. And that was, I want to say, late September. To get an exact date, if you give me just a moment. Don't have it saved. It was
Okay.
it was late September.
September, okay.
So I've completed that and am well on my way to earning my Eagle Scout rank. I have to finish my paperwork left over from the project and 1 remaining merit badge, and that will be it.
Well, thank you very much for doing that project. That is awesome.
Thank you.
Wonderful to see.
Thank you.
And congratulations. I'll say congratulations early. I know you're going to achieve it, so that's without a doubt. So
Thank you.
appreciate your effort very much.
Thank you.
Okay, on to new business. Item number 4, which is to consider and take action on Resolution 13-24, a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of the, general obligation promissory notes, Series 2024A, in the amount of $4,890,000,000.
Ariana Schmidt is here from Ellers and has some good news for you.
I think I read that.
There's also a packet of information that was handed out regarding today's sale of the bonds.
All right, it's that. That's why I can't find the smiley face. All right, thank you for having me tonight, everyone. My name is Ariana Schmidt here with Ellers. My colleague Greg Johnson was here a couple of times previously to talk through the preliminary financing plan and the pre-sale. So today the general obligation notes went out to bid, so I've got the results here for you. If you turn to the first page of this packet, this is the executive summary where I'll walk through the results. So as a reminder, these GO notes are being issued in order to pay for a couple of things. One, stormwater project associated with tax increment district number 7, and additionally various capital improvement plan projects from utilities to buildings to equipment, and those will be funded for 2024 and 2025 projects. In terms of a rating, we did work closely with staff as well as Moody's to get this issue rated, and you were affirmed at an A1 rating. The bids did come in with bond insurance, meaning while the city is rated A1, the issue is looked at as AA through S&P. because of the bond insurance, which is paid for by the underwriter. So we did have good results. We had 5 bidders on the issue, and Bach Financial Securities was the winning bidder with the lowest interest rate at 3.5116%. Just to give it a comparison to what our estimated true interest cost was in the pre-sale report, we had that at just under 4% at 3.9. So it did come in a few basis points below what we had estimated. On the high side, the highest bidder had a tick of 3.6775, so quite a big spread there. Overall, that reduced interest rate as well as the premium that was offered from the underwriter resulted in being able to downsize the issue by $100,000. So that's why you see a change in the full par amount to $4.89 million rather than $4.99 million, which that dollar amount is correctly reflected in the resolution that you would be adopting tonight if you were to choose to do so. So in total, the net principal and interest is about $140,000 less than what you had seen in the pre-sale numbers. Are there any questions on the summary of the results? Otherwise, we do have the tables attached as well that I'm happy to walk through. If you keep turning the page, you'll first see the bid tabulation, which basically goes through in detail the 5 bidders that I just walked through at a high level. If you keep turning to table 1, this is the same table of the capital improvement projects that you saw at the preliminary financing review. No changes were made. This is just provided at your convenience to see the various projects that are planned to be funded in 24 and 25 from these notes. Table number 2 walks through your existing debt profile. The only thing that was updated here was the levy for the net debt service to ensure it matches what you've adopted in your 2025 budget. So making sure that that does tie out. And as we continue on to table 3, this walks through the sources and uses of the project, the various repayment sources, and the durations of each portion of the loan. So there's utility, levy, and stormwater, as well as TID number 7 that are repaying this debt. Overall, top to bottom, you'll see in that very first column called 2024 GO notes, on the very bottom, there's that $100,000 difference I alluded to earlier, which allowed you to reduce the amount of par amount that you needed to take out with this debt issue. Table number 4 is outlined on the next 2 pages. It's just very large due to the multiple purposes and repayment sources, but this just walks through the specific debt schedule as a result of the underwriter's acceptance or the underwriter's bid on the issue today. If you turn to page number 2 of table 4, you will see at the very bottom right the total amongst all purposes. Initially, from the pre-sale estimate was about $142,000 higher than what actually resulted today as a result of that lower true interest cost as well as that premium that the underwriter provided. Table number 5 shows overall what does this mean for your net debt service levy. This does factor in future issues from 2026 through 2030. So if you look to 3 columns from the left, so orange, you'll see the debt service levy category. Your total net debt service levy for 2025 is that $1.056 million. That number is a couple $100 lower than what you had budgeted in the 2025 budget because that dollar amount that you adopted in the budget was based on an estimate from the pre-sale. So obviously today we wanted to ensure that that did not overshoot the amount that you budgeted for. So that is in alignment with the pre-sale report numbers that you saw just slightly below. And then on the right-hand side to that, the levy change from prior year. The levy is increasing roughly $150,000 per year for the next 6 years with all of those financings. So today's issue as well as the next 5 years of debt. We did segregate that to just show the impact of today's issue on the next table. So if you flip to table number 6, you'll see that levy change from the prior year is a positive jump of $128,000 and $151,000 in 2025 and 26. That's reflective of the funding of the 2024 and 2025 projects. Thereafter, you'll see it dips into the red, into the negative. What that's basically doing is allowing you to have sufficient room to issue further debt without having to continue to increase that much. So that gives you in 2027, for example, roughly $300,000 before you're going to have an increase in the levy as a result of your 2026 issue. As you saw on the table prior, that actually would be a $150,000 increase in the levy, but basically just shows, isolating the 2024 issue, what the impact on your net debt service levy would be. Are there any questions on the tax impact at all? I know it's a lot of numbers, so trying to keep it high level as much as possible. And then last table on the next page is table number 7. This takes a look at your general obligation debt capacity. Under state statute, you are only able to issue GO debt up to 5% of the city's equalized value limitation. So what this shows is your existing debt in 2024, if you look in the blue box, is currently at 23% of that total 5% limit. So that's a healthy amount of room. With the issue of the 2024 debt and beyond through 2029, you'll see the highest point that you get is to about 43% of your full threshold. This is something that the rating agencies look closely at. You definitely don't want to get to 100% of your limit in case there were to be an emergency or some need to issue debt that you're not planning for. So the fact that you're well below 50% of your limit means you're in a healthy position. And then the last attachment is multiple pages. This is just for your own reading at night when you can't sleep, to read through the credit opinion from Moody's, which basically walks through the why behind the affirmation of your A1 rating on the GO notes. So are there any questions on anything we've talked through tonight? Anything I can help answer?
Any questions from anybody? No?
All right, then we would be looking to discuss the resolution in front of you tonight. Thank you for having us.
Just a note that the resolution's been updated and shared with you with the updated borrowing amount that was reduced from what was originally planned.
So, on the amended agenda, do we gotta change that number to 4,890,000 instead of 4,990,000?
The resolution that you're approving, I mean, we're going to approve a resolution for the reduced amount. But I think that's, and a lot of times these are anticipated with these bond sales. The fact that it went down is a good thing.
Make sure you get the dollar amount right.
Whoever makes the motion. That's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
four
It'll be
eight
the,
instead of 4.9.
correct.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I would look for a motion to approve Resolution 1324, authorizing the issuance and sale of general obligation promissory notes, Series 2024A, in the amount of $4,890,000.
Alder Motive will make a motion to approve Resolution 13-24, authorizing the issuance and sale of $4,890,000 in general obligation promissory notes.
Second.
Okay, motion by Alder Motive, second by Alder Finkler. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Rostad.
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
Relke.
Aye.
Finkler.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Motive.
Aye.
Ayes have it, 6-0.
Okay, with that, we are going to take just a quick 5-minute break so that we can sign the papers and hand them over. And we're done with that portion of it, so. This is the one that you gave me. So I can't. Okay. What was her name? What's her name? Ariana. Ariana? Thank you for your patience and hanging in here. Do you have a long drive?
Yeah, about an hour and a half.
Ooh, wow, okay.
That's all right, no worries. Just had a few days off of work last week with holidays, so nice little break. Nice off and walk shop. I live in East Point. I live an extra 25 minutes.
Did you say ducks? How are you compared to Tanner?
Tanner's probably got 400. Yeah, I don't even keep up with that guy. I said if I shoot one, it's a good day. Anything above that is great. Yeah, mounds of.
Yeah. I was gonna go with them. I was looking for guns on Friday and Sunday. And I'm like, how much? It was 200. I'm like, whatever. I'm not buying a license for 2 days. They didn't forget.
Oh, good.
Then I got a message. It was in another hour. 5 minutes.
That part's done, I gotta still get with.
Are you ready, Susan?
Yes.
Okay. Yep, have a good night.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, we will move on to item number 5, which is to consider and take action on the 2025 Dodge County Humane Society contract. Please note reference to page 35 and 36. 35, it is the lump sum of $1,800 with covers up to 5 domestic stray animals. Animals in excess of 5 will be charged $450 per animal. And then on page 36, it is the top one that is X. Humane Society must have approval before accepting any animal. In the event that the municipal representatives cannot be reached, City of Columbus authorizes the Executive Director of Dodge County Humane Society to act on your behalf in emergency situations. So.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2025 Dodge County Humane Society contract as presented in front of us.
Second.
Okay, motion by Alder Rosted, second by Alder Finkler. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, roll call.
Finkler. Aye. Reed.
Aye.
Rostad.
Aye.
Relke.
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
Motive.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
All right, next on the agenda is item number 6, to consider and take action on the permitting module by Civic Plus, which was presented at the November 19th meeting. And, go ahead.
Oh, just say I'll move to approve the permitting module by Civic Plus.
Alder Volkey will second.
Okay, motion by Alder Finkler and a second by Alder Rolke. Discussion?
Do we need to have the dollar amount?
Yeah, we probably should.
The cost of the software is $5,300 annually with a one-time setup fee of $2,900.
So
Okay, I'll amend
9,200.
my motion for the annual amount of $5,300 and the one-time setup fee for 29, darn, I was so close, $2,900.
I will still second.
Okay, motion by Alder Finkler, second by Alder Rolke. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, roll call.
Lawson,
Aye.
Rosted,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Finkler. Aye. Relke.
Aye.
Motive.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Okay. Next on the agenda, item number 7 is to consider and take action on the proposal from COWW. That would be in total amount of $14,725.
Is that not in our packets? My number 7 is the raise order.
It'll be number 6.
Number
Number 7.
6 is the permitting module.
You have the amended agenda?
I do have the amended agenda.
The old packet isn't amended.
Oh, yeah, duh. Sorry. Yep,
You got it?
saving trees. I'm good.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have a motion?
Alder Motive will make a motion to transition to COWW on a combined basis in the amount of $14,725.
Second?
Okay, motion by Alder Motive, second by Alder Rosted. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, roll call.
Reed,
Aye.
Rosted,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Motive,
Aye.
Finkler. Aye. Relke.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Okay. Next on the agenda is to consider and take action on the raise order for 235 West Harrison Street. Discussed earlier, it appeared that the majority of people were good with option number 2.
Alder Rolke will move to approve action to open legal proceedings with the raise order for 235 West Harrison Street.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Alder Rolke, second by Alder Lawson. Further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Nay.
Then on to item number 9, which is to consider and take action on resolution number 1424, supporting the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation Small Business Development Grant.
Alder Motive will make a motion to approve resolution number 14-24, supporting the WEDC Small Business Development Grant.
Reed will second.
Okay, motion by Alder Motive, second by Alder Reed. Discussion on this? Molly, do you have a?
Oh,
Nope, that's fine. Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next then would be to consider and take action on resolution number 15-23, supporting Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation Vibrant Spaces Grant.
I'll move to approve resolution number 15-24, supporting Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation Vibrant Spaces Grant.
Alder Rolke will second.
Okay, motion by Alder Finkler, second by Alder Rolke. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
The next is to consider and take action on ratifying the 2025 utility operating budget.
I'll move to approve the 2025, or the ratification of the 2025 utility operating budgets.
Alder Rolke will second.
Okay, motion by Alder Finkler, second by Alder Rolke to ratify the utilities budget. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Do we have to do a roll call?
We're just ratifying.
Oh,
mean,
okay.
it's the-
Aye. Late.
Opposed? Okay. Next would be to consider and take action on the claims in the amount of $420,189.17.
I'll make a motion to pay the claims in the amount of $420,189.17.
Second.
Okay, motion by Alder Lawson, second by Alder Rosted. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Finkler. Aye. Lawson.
Aye.
Motive.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Rilke.
Aye.
Rosted.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Okay, next on the agenda would be the take action on the award of building inspection services to MSA engineering firm.
I'll jump in on this.
Yes, please.
So I messed up. This shouldn't have just been on the council agenda. It should have also been on the special cow agenda. In the realization that we forgot to initially put this on the agenda and the rush to amend the agenda yesterday at the end of the day, I for somehow thought that we'd had this conversation at cow on November 19th, which we clearly did not. Mike is prepared to discuss this. We have representatives from MSA here. We received 2 proposals. We deemed that one of those was not a viable option in staff review and are recommending moving forward to MSA. I think it's important to note that we reached out to 5 companies that service this area for building inspection, and of those 5, only 1 responded. As we've discussed throughout this process, it's a tough market. There's not a lot of companies out there that are actively seeking additional work. And so I am thankful that we do have MSA willing to provide these services. In terms of how to deal with this tonight, you've got, as I see, you have 2 options. One, you could suspend or waive, Paul will give you the right language, ordinance 2-52, which basically would waive the need for this to go to cow and allow the council to address it this evening. Or you could ask it to come back as a special cow and cow at the next meeting on December 17th. It's the 3rd, 17th, thank you. So, but I'll let Mike discuss this and answer any questions that you have as well.
Yeah, we received 2 proposals, and the MSA proposal was written specifically to the RFP. They addressed everything in there. They included the licensing of all the profiles of their staff and the licensing numbers, so I was able to verify they're all licensed in the various aspects of building inspection. They also demonstrated a high priority on providing in-person inspections and their ability and willingness to work with staff, contractors, and the public to deliver quality building inspection services. One of their approaches on delivering service on the compensation side is to only charge for the work being done, so that the hourly in the proposal there, that the labor rate, the charges there, that's what will be charged when they do inspections. In the past, we've done a percentage of the fee to go to the inspector. When that happens, they essentially, when someone applies for a permit, they pay for it. A percentage of that fee had gone to our building inspector, and they already have their revenue prior to doing the inspection. So there's not a whole lot of incentive to complete the inspection. So this is a little bit different approach. that will put a burden on me, or I'll have to spend some of my time just to make sure we are in the black. But I'm confident this process, this arrangement will work out well. Any questions?
Alder Lawson.
Yeah, it sounds like from what I read, MSA is the partner to have here, so not doubting that. I'm just wondering if we have a more specific rate schedule that will be included with the contract, because the one that I see here in the proposal has some really big ranges. So for instance, a project manager, you could be charged anywhere from 120 to 248 an hour.
We don't have anything more specific than that. I think, like I mentioned, the approach is we would get billed for the work being done for the appropriate staff, and maybe Stephanie Potter and Greg Barucki is here, so maybe they can address kind of how they invoice municipalities.
My name's Greg Baruch.
There's a face, there you go.
There we go.
Perfect.
Saw the other guy do it. Sorry about that. Greg Barucki, I'm a team leader at MSA, and this is Stephanie Potter. She's our lead building inspector. And you have a proposal, I won't go through that, it's late at night, but to address rates, those are our full company rates. That's a standard rate structure. So our building inspectors range from, I believe it's 100, 110. It might go up in the 2025 to maybe 120, up to 155, 160. So depending on what you're getting in that range, those are the actual rates of the people. People say that's a lot. What we've found is by producing or billing by the inspections, that it actually gives you more control, and it gives you the flexibility to provide services that you need depending on different situations. MSA has a full staff or support staff that can help in a certain situation. We've also found that by doing it hourly, you not only have the ability to control your money, but we also have the motivation that we need to go out there and be personable with your staff. We have to be here. We're going to have office hours here. We're going to meet with the people that are getting with the building permits. We know that if somebody's going to come in and getting building permit, if we're meeting with them right away, that we have the opportunity to jump on all the issues right away instead of showing up and saying, well, geez, this isn't done, that's not done, it's not done correctly, and then that leads to more and more staff hours and whatever else. So I don't know if you have any questions.
I guess the only other thing I could really add is that we have, provided Mike like a few different example fee schedules that we found that have worked in other communities. And then for our hourly rates, it's like our more experienced, inspectors are obviously higher. So we have an electrician who's like our main commercial electrical inspector. Like I'm a commercial electrical inspector too, but I've got somebody that I have as backup who his rate may be a little higher, but I only use him if I run across a special scenario. Part of like the fee schedule that like we've been discussing or provided is if we run into something like that, there's like a special, like an additional inspection charge or something that you could put on the fee schedule that says if it went above and beyond that, that then you're making sure to cover then our hourly rate on that inspection. And then you also know that it's getting handled correctly instead of just, oh, I'm going to guess or not show up or something.
Yeah, so it's, I don't know how to explain it. I know it in my head really well, and it works with all the other 20 communities that we picked up. They like it. We keep track of it ourselves. We work with the city to create that fee structure so that we know that you're going to be in the black. I don't think that the fee structures that we have proposed as samples are much different than your current fee structures.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Clarifying question to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly. your fees are sort of set up like a law firm, where different levels of attorneys or different skills have different hourly rates. And you'll use the inspector that best fits that building, specialty needed for that building, but you'll be using assistants, paralegals in a law firm do this to help when you can, to keep costs lower for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if there's administrative duties that we have somebody that's going to be at $95 an hour and they can do a bunch of the checking our actual projects. So if somebody comes in and gets a permit in our system, our ERP system, that would be a task under City of Columbus's project, building inspection project. And we keep track of how much time that we built to that project so we can see versus the actual permit fees. And that's how we keep track of whether we're in the black or in the red. We have not been in the red in any of our other communities, and I don't feel that we are going to be, but there are certain situations where there's a really sticky situation where maybe we have to have, and I'm just throwing out for a dollar amount, but $200 for electrical inspection. And for whatever reason, this home has a huge amount of electrical issues or whatever, and it may be $500 for it. But in the whole process of the whole building itself, we're netting out in the black for you. So hopefully that makes sense.
Anybody else have any questions for them at this time?
We did provide references in there. Hopefully you called. You can call anybody that we work for that isn't even a reference. I'm pretty confident that you're going to get the same results.
I did check references, and they were all positive.
So how do we,
I'll just add that if there is interest in moving forward with this, that you're going to direct staff to develop a contract with MSA pending city attorney final approval, because there is some language things that need to be worked out between the city and MSA. And I have confidence in Paul's ability to work those out on the city's behalf.
right, that's
Yeah.
what I was, yeah.
If you want to take the safe route to get this approved tonight, you should do this in two motions. Motion number one will be a motion to suspend the rules. 2-41 of your code requires everything to go to the COW first, then to the council. 2-52 says the city council can suspend the rules. So that, similar to what we do when we approve ordinances, it's the same thing. So that would be your first motion, and then your second motion will be action on the main item before you.
So Alder Motive would like to make a motion to suspend and waive the rules as per 2-41 to take this to COW first.
This would be to take it, not to.
Not to not take it to
That
COW.
would be-
That's what I meant.
That would be 2-52, under 2-52.
No,
allows us.
52
No.
allows us to suspend.
Yeah.
She's right.
Adopt a motion to suspend the rules under 2-52 of the city code.
Okay, so Alder Motive makes a motion to suspend the rules as per 2-52 of the city code.
Second.
Okay, motion by Alder Motive and a second by Alder Finkler to suspend the rules under 2-52. Any further discussion on this?
And that should be a roll call.
Okay. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
Roll call.
Lawson,
Aye.
Rostad,
Aye.
Motive,
Aye.
Relke,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Finkler.
Aye.
Ayes have it, 6-0.
Okay, then next I would look for a motion to award the building inspection services to MSA.
Alder Motive will make a motion to award the building inspection services to MSA.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Alder Motive, second by Alder Lawson. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Are you an aye?
I'm an aye.
Okay, all right.
I hit my button and it started blinking green.
That's the panic button.
Oh, that's Ryan.
Thank you very much. Next, reports.
So my snafu has forced me to do something I've been wanting to do anyway, and so I think a lot of you know when we create the agendas, that's a meeting with the mayor and the council president and myself and Susan. In other communities, the department heads were all in part of that meeting, so they're now going to be invited to all future agenda meetings so that I hopefully avoid trying to have to keep all this in my head and involve everyone else in that process to hopefully avoid this situation moving forward. I also just want to compliment and thank Amy Jo for the tree lighting ceremony that was held Friday. A neat community event. It was fun to see the kids throw fairy dust onto the tree to make it light up, even if there were some small technical difficulties in getting it lit initially. But a nice event. Thank her for the opportunity, inviting me to speak, although I don't know that I said anything greatly important. But again, just highlighting that event, it's neat to see the community out taking part in those events. A lot of kids, a lot of hot chocolate, a lot of cookies, and looking forward to the holiday parade on December 14th. And would also point out that it was great to see a lot of really happy people wandering the streets Saturday afternoon and early evening, enjoying the wine walk. It looked like a great time. Someday I'll learn to appreciate wine myself. So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. My thanks also to Amy Jo and her crew for organizing the tree lighting and Sparkle in the Park. Drove through there. It's very nice indeed. Thanks to the DPW and utility crews for putting up the Christmas decorations. CPKC holiday train will be here this coming Sunday, December 8th. It's expected to arrive at 9:05, but go to the city website because it does explain in there of the holiday events and what's all. So go to the city website, scroll down to local holiday events for more information. And you already mentioned about the holiday parade being on December 14th, so come out and enjoy that. So with that, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Alder Finkler and a second by Alder Rosted to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.
Is everybody good with just powering right through? Okay. In that case, I'd like to welcome you all back to the Committee of the Whole meeting, Tuesday, December 3rd. And could I please have a roll call, Susan?
Finkler, here. Hammer.
Here.
Lawson.
Here.
Motive. Present. Reed.
Here.
Relke.
Here.
Rostad.
Here.
I acknowledge this meeting was also posted and noticed according to law.
Okay. First item is to approve the agenda, and I would take a motion for same.
I'll move to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved. Included in your packet are committee minutes for file from beautification of 10/14/24, library of 10/15/24, and PFC from 10/16 of 24, and a department report for file, treasurer's report of 10/20/24. And is there anybody signed up for public comment? Okay. First item for discussion is discussion of final plat for Cardinal Heights. Matt?
Yeah, I'll try to make this short. We are not going to ask that you review the final plat for Cardinal Heights this evening. We're working through some potential changes to that final plat that will likely require it to go back to Plan Commission for review. And as a result, we anticipate bringing a amendment to the development agreement at the December 17th meetings for approval to extend. There's a deadline to have the final plat recorded by the end of this year, and we're going to anticipate extending that out into 2025. The developer is insistent on wanting to have construction started in April to meet his deadlines for the project. So I think it's just a bump in the road, and we'll make sure that we get the final plat updated and to Plan Commission and then back to through Cow and Council.
Thank you. So the next item for discussion is renewal of athletic field use agreements. Is that Amy Jo? Is that you? Okay. Yep. It's been a while.
Hello. There are some pretty significant changes to the athletic field agreement contract in front of you. These were all brought forward to the softball group, the baseball group, and the soccer group, and after many attempts, we came to this agreement in front of you. I believe you have a correct red-lined one now. You can see those changes were made. Any questions?
Alder Lawson?
Do you have any outstanding concerns?
No, I think this all came to light because there were a lot of issues with receiving payments late after several emails and phone calls, and we thought that it would be important to kind of have something in writing to be a little bit more stern with the late fee. No field use until all payment and all obligations are met. Plain hardball, but it needs to be done.
Any other questions for Amy Jo? Everybody's comfortable moving this forward for a vote? Thank you. Next item is discussion of stormwater ordinance recreation, and is Jason?
I'll
Matt?
highlight this
Sure.
for lead into Jason. You'll remember we recently went through a process to update our erosion control ordinance. This really doesn't relate in any way or shape or form to the stormwater referendum. They're similarly worded with the term stormwater, but this is very different. This is in terms of how our zoning and code is placed on development projects related to stormwater, and I'll let Jason speak to greater detail into what that means.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So if you remember last time we were here at the Cow, we kind of went over the stormwater ordinance, and there's several changes in here that relate to specific technical standards, which is making the code more robust. We also kind of put it in a graduated or tiered system for applications. We added infill developments that obviously hadn't existed before, redevelopment standards. And this was all kind of predicated off the DNR model ordinance. So again, we're going to more of a standard ordinance than we had previously. It also consolidates the stormwater code from multiple chapters into this single chapter before you tonight. And so there was quite a few changes here, but this was one that we felt was necessary. In addition to this, there is a permit section required, which we haven't historically had. So we added that in, and we do have the corresponding permit developed that goes along with this as well. So when we do have these sites come in, we'll have a separate permit for that will have a fee associated with it for administering the permit and reviewing and making sure it's compliant. Lastly, there was a stormwater maintenance agreement that we've used historically, but we made that part of the ordinance as a requirement. So we built that in as well to make sure that if people do have these facilities on their site, they are maintaining them long term. They're taking care of them, and if they don't, it gives the city the right to go in and do it and assess them back the cost for it as well. So all these things are meant to improve the water quality, reduce the flooding and amount of stormwater runoff in the community. I mentioned last time we did add some more stringent standards to the amount of water to retain on site on new developments. So as we're creating that runoff, we're controlling it by ordinance to have less of it run off. So again, we're not being ultra conservative. We're not Madison. Madison's requiring a 200-year storm not leave the site. We're nowhere near that. We're somewhere in the middle. It's a happy medium. We've beefed it up from what we had, but we're not requiring the standards that we're seeing in some of the more aggressive communities. So
As a whole, I don't know if you have any specific questions as the ordinance itself, but I know we went over it as the committee of the whole, so that's just kind of a recap or summary.
Does anybody have any questions for Jason? Okay, is everybody comfortable moving this forward? All right. Next item is discussion regarding posting city buildings prohibiting firearms.
I placed this back on the cow just because I didn't feel like we had clear direction coming out of the last meeting and wanted to make sure we had this right before putting it on council in terms of what the intent is moving forward.
Does anybody have any questions? Alder Lawson?
I don't think I have a question. I think, at least some of us, and I won't speak for others, but I am happy with moving it forward as drafted.
Alder
Are you, just for clarification, are you saying to adopt the state law in this regard?
No, sorry, adopt the city ordinance that was drafted.
Leave it like it is.
Leave things as they are.
So is that the current city ordinance?
The current city ordinance says that we have to notify someone in writing.
We just don't have it posted.
Correct.
Okay.
And that we have to notify someone in writing if we want them to not enter our buildings with a weapon.
Yeah, post.
Okay. So yes, I'm for keeping the city ordinance and posting on city property.
Keeping the city ordinance like it is and putting the signs up.
Yes.
Perfect.
Does that work for you?
Oh, that's been the conversation all along. If you have the law in place, the question is, do you want to actually enact it by putting the signs up? That was the conversation however many years ago, and that's still the conversation today.
Alder Motive?
I support enacting it as it's written and posting it.
Alder Reed?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'd also like to move this forward for a vote to enact and post.
Alder Rostad?
What was the reasoning for making it stricter than the state law?
The reasoning, that's a really good question. I'm not sure that I could accurately tell you. I know that it was the conversation turned out to be one of, I'm trying to figure out the best way to explain this. At the end of the day, it turned out to be one of a concern over liability by not allowing people to come into the building with firearms versus a concern about the dangers of allowing people to come into a building with firearms. And I think that part of the conversation was that councils may change their opinion as time goes on, and this is one way that things can fluctuate. That's the best recollection I can give you.
So it wasn't anything to do with an employee?
Not a particular one, no.
No, I mean like employees of the city, because the handbook would cover that they can't carry a weapon.
Right. No, it had nothing to do with that.
Okay.
At the risk of confusing you a little bit more, by the way this is set up, it also could be made building to building specific. I mean, because you have to post each building individually in order for this to be effective. So that is also something to consider if you adopt a motion that says, post all the buildings, okay, that's fine. If you think there's a difference between City Hall versus the pavilion, or the senior center, or the rec center, then you can differentiate that way as well.
But we don't have to post the PD, correct? Because concealed carry can't go in there anyway.
I believe that's correct.
Alder Finkler?
And just to be clear, there's been no incidents that has sparked the reason to bring this back up?
None that I'm aware of. That would be a chief question.
What prompted this was just a random discussion during the election, lead up to the elections, of why aren't our buildings posted like other governmental buildings are?
Right. And I mean, I guess I'll just say the same thing I said last time when we talked about this. I feel like it's just a false sense of security, and if a bad actor is going to come in with a gun, they're going to come in with one, and they're not going to file for a concealed carry permit. That the people that are following the law file for the concealed carry. So I just think that it's just weird it's coming up when we haven't had any issues.
Alder Motive?
I have two comments. One, I support that it's posted in all of the buildings, not just here and there. Two, Molly's correct in that, you know, somebody who has ill intent, they're going to do whatever they want, whether it's posted or not. However, I think it's good to clearly post and state what our rules are and to enforce those, and this is one of them.
Alder Lawson?
You mentioned that we can post on each, or we have to post at each individual building that we want it to be enforced at. Can the signs be removed at any time? So like, for instance, if there's going to be an event at the pavilion, are we able to remove them? Does it have to stay posted? Like, how would we handle that?
The way that this is set up, I believe that if you wanted to remove the prohibition on one building for a particular event, and Ryan mentioned the gun show at the pavilion, which is probably what you're thinking about as well, that would be the council adopting a motion that says for this date through this date, this is, take the signs down. Be slightly more artful than that, but that would be the effect.
Alder Rosted?
And if that's the way the majority of the council wants to go, I would suggest that when it comes to the committee or the council on December 17th, I believe, that we put in the dates of April 4th through April 6th to be waived, because we know the date is April 5th. I don't know when they're going to set up though, so let's kill two birds with one stone.
That's a bad use of words, by the way, on this particular topic.
Are there any other questions, concerns, comments? Okay. Do you have the directions that you need this time? Okay. Then the next item on the agenda is discussion regarding city phone services.
One of my goals for the year was to, get our phone system in a position where we were in a good place heading into 2025. This has been an ongoing discussion that I'll admit I've spent some time on. It fell by the wayside, and now I'm trying to get back into a position to have this wrapped up by the end of the year. You'll remember way back we were talking with AT&T, who is our current provider. Digital Bay is our current phone system operator. And when I started asking questions about if we built out a fiber network and connected our buildings, what would that mean, and would we retain ownership of our fiber optic lines, they stopped returning my calls. And I've focused more recently with Rhyme, who you may know is our IT provider, they have a phone product called Elevate, and coincidentally enough, U.S. Cellular, who has it's not a, these are comparable systems. The fact that U.S. Cellular is repping Crescendo, it's more of a partnership that U.S. Cellular, so that they can be a provider of when they're dealing with mobile phone contracts, that they can do phone, both in-house phones and mobile phones. So they're all IP-based phone systems. You can see the pricing and where this really comes down to is in the licensing. It's clear to me that Crescendo is lower. Our Rhyme representative was going back to the people at Elevate to see if they could be more competitive with the Crescendo proposal, and at this point, I'm asking you to approve Crescendo, and if something changes between now and posting the agenda for December 17th, maybe that changes, but I wanted to move this forward and have an action item for the council on December 17th. You may be surprised to know we pay about $990 a month for phone service, and 2/3 of that is taxes and fees. We are increasing what we pay for these licenses, but through deregulation, we'll be decreasing the amount of taxes and fees we pay. So we're actually, as it looks right now, and this may change, but our monthly service fee should actually be going down a little bit. And then, just as a reminder, we have $30,000 allocated in the capital budget for a new phone system. That's for purchasing the one-time hardware, and we're probably in the $16,000, $17,000 range at the end of the day with hardware installation. So I'm cautiously optimistic that this could be a win-win, that we're going to save both on the capital projection as well as our monthly service fee, which was my primary concern in evaluating these systems. So.
Alder Lawson?
So these are all soft phones, there's not actually equipment?
No, it's a combination. We're giving staff the choice of if they want to use soft phone, and you're only, I'm recommending that if you're in and out of your office and have a city-issued cell phone, to actually look at the soft phone option, but otherwise looking at a traditional phone. And some of our, I think some of our positions are much more on the phone, taking calls from the public, that it makes sense to have a more traditional phone. I know there are businesses that have went completely soft phone. I don't know that we're completely ready for that. My thought is that we may be able to transition over time to more soft phone installation. For those that don't know what a soft phone is, it's no physical phone on your desk. It's an app on your computer. And so when I got here, I saw a phone on my desk and said, what is that foreign thing? Because I haven't had a phone on my desk in probably the last 6 years before coming here. What's really unique about these is they ring through an app on your phone, on your computer, and you answer them on the computer just like you'd take a Zoom call or a Teams call. And then if you're not in your office, it can forward to your cell phone. And then if you make a call through the app, it's a call that comes from your city desk phone, in theory. It's not coming from your cell phone. So if you think about the expansion of mobile workplaces and how people are able to work remotely like they're in their office and having a virtual office, this is one of those components to being able to do that, but it's also now a standard feature of all new phone systems. So.
I think most people don't realize that they use a soft phone every day, because this is a soft phone. It functions the same way.
Yeah. We use them, Amy and I, at Converge. It works very well. Doesn't make sense unless you are the main person answering the phone for the entity to have a soft phone.
The only argument is we have a number of city positions that aren't issued a city-issued cell phone, and so therefore I want them to be able to have a physical phone.
Is it cheaper for them to have the soft phone?
The licensing from Crescendo When you're trying to blend your office with your cell phone,
Yeah.
it's actually the advanced user license. With Crescendo, the professional user is a physical phone on the desk. The advanced user, which is the higher monthly service fee, is the soft phone.
The reason I was asking is I know some entities provide stipends for them to put towards their cell phone if that's what is the more financially responsible way to go.
Not to get too far off topic, I don't like stipends with government-issued cell phones because of what people think they can do on their government-issued phone that now we're paying a portion of, essentially. So I like keeping that clean and separate for Paul's benefit.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Is everybody comfortable moving this forward? Thank you. Next item is discussion of potential 2025 stormwater referendum question for the spring election ballot.
Brief slides, but just highlighting the question that was asked in April of 2022, shall the City of Columbus Stormwater Utility be permitted to charge its customers for maintenance and operation of stormwater management facilities and infrastructure without reducing the levy limit for fees collected? You can see the vote totals there was a 40 to 60, 60% no. In researching, in your packet, there's the list from APWA that includes all the communities that have enacted stormwater utilities. I think there's somewhere around 120, it's either 123, 129. It's probably not an important detail. The interesting thing is there's roughly 4 or 5 communities that have enacted a stormwater utility post the change requiring you to go to referendum. As I've researched those communities, I've found some unique things, like that maybe they didn't go to referendum and ask their voters. And one of those communities, city clerk confirmed that they didn't go to referendum earlier today. So I'm not sure that they're good examples. What I was trying to find were referendum questions that other communities that have passed a referendum have asked. And sadly, I'm sorry to do this. Shall the City of Middleton be permitted to charge customers of the stormwater utility a quarterly charge per equivalent runoff unit that is adequate to fund the city's stormwater management program and to maintain compliance with state and federal regulations without reducing the City of Middleton's levy limit in 2025 and thereafter? So this was November of 24, passed with a 67% approval rating. Middleton has a very engaged and active Friends of Pheasant Branch Conservancy, which was formed a gazillion years ago to actually oppose the city. And there's been a lot of effort since that time in making a very good relationship. In the time I was there, worked very closely with their leadership. It was a very amicable relationship, and they've helped the city initially pass their stormwater utility referendum, the initial one in 2014, a follow-up referendum in 2019 that created a 5-year increase in the rate that was charged, and what you saw on November 24 was there was a sunset on that rate increase. What this did was increase that to that amount for the permanent future. So again, that's Middleton. My questions is, should the council decide to move forward with a stormwater referendum, what role will the council play? What's expected of staff? I think, things like a website page, FAQs, holding public information meetings, but just being clear on what other things are being asked of staff. And I'd encourage that if the council is serious about moving forward with this, that the council help play a role in educating the public. And you don't even have to advocate. I just think it's sharing the education and why the city is looking at this and being supportive of that effort, whether you personally support the referendum or not, that I think we all need to be on the same page. Because if we're going to put the effort into doing this and moving forward, I think everyone should want to see it be successful. So.
I say absolutely to all of that. We need to move this forward, and we need the stormwater utility to start having a revenue component to that so that we can accomplish some of our goals for now and in the future.
Alder Rosted?
When's the deadline?
January 21st, we have to have the question to the county.
To the county, which means, I believe, to the newspaper, to, the public, to.
We have to adopt a resolution prior to January 21st, correct?
That's
With,
step
that
one.
has the language and the city's intent.
So is it, I've had actually a lot of constituents reach out that are not in favor of the referendum or going to referendum question. Is there a way, is it too much to ask with the holidays to have a public input to see what the public wants before the council makes a decision?
We can get that scheduled. I mean,
Because I think the last time we failed at education is what I hear a lot of people saying. They
last time
weren't
we failed at
informed.
not having a plan.
And yeah, not being informed of what it was going to be used for, what you could use it for. So I think getting the public's input before we make a decision would be a better situation, in my opinion.
I mean, not that everybody wants more meetings, but I'm just off the top of my head, December 18th, so Wednesday night following council, that'd be a night that we've got enough time between now and then to publicize, get word out. And I know it works for my schedule, not that it works for everybody else's, but, I'm open to other thoughts and ideas. I think it's either gonna have to be that week or you're looking at January, because next week's too quick of a turnaround. And then getting after the week of, what is that, the 16th is problematic.
Could we do it before the meetings on Tuesday?
That'd be another option, to have kind of an open house format here before the council meeting on the 17th. Whether call it an open house on the stormwater referendum, public information meeting, yeah. I mean, I'd go at 5. Because even, if we try and keep it to an hour, people will hang out for a little while, ask questions. It gives people a chance to use the restroom before council meeting starts, have a little break. So.
We appreciate that.
So 5 o'clock on the 17th. Is it too early for people? Is 5:30 better because of work schedules? And is 5 and something that like, oh, there's a city holding a meeting that I can't come to because of work? Kind of complaints.
I mean, I'll be at library board that day, but 5:30 seems like a friendlier schedule for more of the people with a traditional work schedule.
What time is library board? 5.
I'm going to put Jason on the spot. Is there a form?
He's still here?
He is.
He is still here, look at that.
Is there a format for these that you maybe have some topics at a table, and some of us, I'm thinking you, myself, Mike, Jacob Holbert, maybe the mayor, with topics that people have questions about, that could come and ask those specific questions and try and streamline people's ability to get the information they're looking for. And maybe that's the first half hour with a just brief presentation at, say, 6 o'clock.
So, honestly, I do not know that, and Sarah can recall our efforts last time. We had 3 listening sessions at different venues, different formats that discussed different phases of the stormwater utility. One was on how it's created, one's how it's managed, one's how it's funded, and we had a very FAQ setup that we handed out, we were prepared, we did it in person. The issue, and again, no disrespect, Ryan, but the issue is getting the public to come to these, right? I mean, we had 1,000 voters at most. Our biggest turnout in 3 listening sessions might have been 20 people, which probably a third of that were city staff. And then the other few people were the same people we saw 3 listening sessions that came that were vocal about, opposition to it, which is fine. But I don't know the recipe to bring the people in. I think televising it would be a good idea. I mean, you can reach out, but that isn't an interactive venue. We can go through an effort of preparing that type of format, Matt, but I would be cautious in saying that if we're only going to get a half a dozen people show up, it's an effort that has been done before with little turnout. Now, we depending on the time of day, and we varied that last time. We picked different days of the week. So we were very conscientious to try and find opportunities for people to attend at least one of them.
Right.
And in most cases, we revisited the topics on the previous session, just to go through, here's what we heard last time, here's how we've responded to it to update people. So again, I thought we had a pretty good approach and attack. It was just how do we engage the public? And, we had talked about it at the council meetings. This is coming up. Here's the dates. Please attend. We had postings out. We listed it on the website. So we made a big effort to go through to draw these people out. Unfortunately, I felt the apathy was the problem, right? It's getting those people that have an opinion, whether that's in favor or against, to come out and engage and let us know. And again, I think at the time we went through this, I think the council was very responsive to listening to the feedback. I mean, there was people that said, we need a sunset on a rate increase or a stay or a freeze. And, those were things that were worked into the ordinance and built into how the funds would be managed. And again, we didn't have all the answers, right? We didn't have the plan. And, I get that, but that was the feedback we took from those listening sessions and ultimately developed that. So given that we have a plan now, I'd be hopeful, but I'm not optimistic we're going to see a big turnout. And, how do you reach enough people to get that 1,000 people that may vote again educated and have the input into, that piece? So, I'm happy to do whatever as well. We can redo our old format. We can come up with a new format.
Is it a situation where we'd be better off if this is the direction the council wants to go? And we haven't decided that yet. That's the other part of this, and I get that Ryan wants to have a meeting to kind of help determine that, okay? Would an opposite approach be that if the council decides to go forward with this, we get a website created, we get our FAQs, we get a presentation filmed and put on the website without holding a public meeting, and we spend April, February, and March going out to as many groups and as many people. Instead of expecting people to come to us, we're going to go to them and do a presentation style and educate on why the council's made the decision to move forward with the stormwater referendum.
You would mean January, February, March.
What did I say?
April, because April 1st is the election.
Yeah, it's January, February, and March.
Yeah.
And you got to get,
You could also put it on the fall. You could
There
back
is-
it up and.
there's no fall election.
There's only a potential February primary if needed, whether that's statewide or locally, and the April 1st election for spring. That's it this year, next year.
Well, how does that, wow. What's such a deal?
Yeah.
Those odd years.
Well, and maybe another thought that I was thinking of here as we were talking about to engage the public is, would it be crazy to do something like a survey monkey or something on the website to ask the voters some questions, about, are you concerned about, certain aspects of the utility, whether that's the rate that's, being proposed, or are you concerned about, the increased potential, or you can, and I feel like maybe you could get people engaged in, people love sitting at their computer or on their phone on their couch, right?
Right.
Could you get them to interact with you that way, and could there be some meaningful data if it's, unanimous or anonymous, that you could draw some input back? Because, I feel like some kind of passive engagement, to your point, might be better. But I also think, to Ryan's point, if we want to hear from the citizens, somehow we got to get them to respond or come out to give us some direction of what bothers them, what needs to be changed, what can we educate them on maybe that they are missing, that they're not aware of. And so maybe that's a way to do it, is to come up with some kind of format where we can solicit some online feedback too. I don't know.
Can I chime in, please? Well, I had a similar thought, so I actually have a couple things I want to say here. One, you are 100% on the mark for the listening sessions that we did. They were really well structured, but we just didn't get a huge turnout. Those that did turn out participated. I still have all the materials with the FAQs and everything that we wrote. That, everything can always be better. Doesn't mean the stuff we had was perfect, but you could use to springboard off of and tailor to your new structure. I do think that we need to do a combination. We still need to do listening sessions. We need to have staff being active and going out to clubs, departments, all of that, engaging as well. It would be really hard to put together a quality listening session before January, like in the next 2 weeks. But what about a Zoom webinar, right? That way people can be engaged, they can see, we can have materials, and they can ask questions. Usually through the webinars, it's through chat, so we would need a moderator to follow that. But that way, people aren't leaving their couch or hurrying out of work or whatever. And then the only other thing I wanted to say, I'm sorry guys, is one of the biggest problems that we encountered last time was the thought of, well, I'm going to pay a fee, let them just tax me. They're the same thing. Those were the common words we heard. This is just a tax. So that would be a huge component of the education piece and how this is different.
Yeah, and I'm probably assuming that everyone knows the difference, but and that's been a suggestion at at one of the meetings I was at, is just increase our taxes. And the problem with doing that is it lets the next council determine what the priority is for how that money is spent. Whereas a stormwater utility, if you enact a stormwater utility, whatever that accrued money is, it has to be spent on stormwater. And to me, that's the benefit that I see, in that we know we've got road issues, we've got facility issues that we're going to have to address. The stormwater is dedicated funding for stormwater in a town with a river running through it, with a history of flooding problems, that it just makes, just objectively, if a community was going to have a stormwater utility, Columbus would be on that list from my perspective when you look at the communities that do have one.
And we do have FAQs that help explain that already set up and stuff, so.
Alder Lawson?
Can you remind me where the requirement comes from to take this to referendum?
Section 66.0602, paren 2M, paren B4.
Say that again, please.
Seeing that I had to look it up this afternoon, it's 66.0602, paren 2M, paren B4.
And why Paul knows that so well is he got a question posed to him this afternoon that we had a unnamed city clerk confirm that last year they enacted a stormwater utility outside of their levy with no referendum.
So, we have a stormwater utility, we don't have a fee.
Correct.
Correct.
So this specifically says in order to charge a fee,
It's to not reduce your
to not make the equivalent reduction in levy.
To not make the
Right.
money that you collect pursuant to the utility as an, well, basically as an offset to your,
Right.
to your levy.
So that's that requirement.
So it's
Okay.
in addition to.
And if I remember right, we didn't have to take it to referendum. The laws changed, and we came in before it changed to create the utility.
Yeah, the law changed in it was a 2013 act that changed the law, that probably made it effective in 15 or so would be my guess. I'm going off memory, but.
So the other, I guess, concern I have is no matter how much of this outreach that you talk about we could do, right? You're going to get voters that go, they see the question, and that's all the information they've got. So can we include some of the information, more information in the question itself? Is there anything prohibiting us from doing that?
No, the question that goes on the ballot can be pretty much whatever you want it to be. And there's a fine line in there, because if you've got a 4-paragraph question, that's not going to do you any good.
Well, right, but if we get to the point where, I don't know, let's say we do the Survey Monkey idea and we find out that there's 2 major concerns, right? One is that the fee could go up immediately, right? Well, we could phrase that in a sentence, right? In a way that says that, hey, the fee would be frozen, whatever it is, right? That legally makes sense. So we could include some of those things without making it a ridiculous question to ask.
You could do that. You could put a specific dollar amount in your question that says, can you impose, can the city impose a stormwater utility fee not to exceed X dollars? And then you're stuck with that number. But yes, you could do it that way. The city chose not to do it that way the first time. One other example that I've got sitting in here, they did that.
I'll
That's what-
caution everyone to be very careful about that question, because for 6 years in unnamed community, we had one council member who latched onto one word in the referendum question, and it was construction, and he refused to use the stormwater utility monies to pay for engineering, design of stormwater-related projects, because the referendum question said construction. So just be careful of the words that we ultimately choose. Should we go that route? Yeah.
It's always a fine line trying to figure out exactly what the question is, because you're trying to also phrase the question in a positive tone, and you don't want it to be too wordy, but you have to get the message out, and yeah, it's difficult. Well, right, and nobody knows if that wording that we used was a good idea or not. It was straight and to the point.
Susan just shared with me that there's 21 work days between now and January 21st.
January 7th.
January 7th? Oh,
Because the 21st is the next meeting after.
So we would have to adopt a resolution at the January 7th meeting.
Which means that we have to go to a special meeting.
Unless we have it on the December 17th. Sorry.
Alder Rossa?
I can't take the credit for this, but could you send something in the tax bill?
I'm sorry?
Send information in the tax bill or the utility bill. The utility bill always sends out the leaf pickup, the brush pickup.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of deadlines for both.
Yeah, because you can do all of that.
Because the tax bill goes to everybody.
But the question is like, what would we put in that information.
And I don't know what Crystal's schedule is with the mail out, because we don't mail those out from here. It gets mailed out by another entity.
I know
Oh.
that she shared with me that that's usually a second week of December activity, so that's like next week.
Isn't it too late for the utility as well, Molly, to get that application in?
I don't get into that detail.
No,
That'd
they
be a
bill
Joe
at the end, they
question.
bill at the end of the month,
That could make it,
comes out.
because we're just getting, that could make it into
But
the January.
Are we talking
It
about
depends on what
just
you're trying to do.
educational?
Yeah, if
we're
it's
just
educational.
trying to be educational, we don't have to reach this deadline. We can come up with a I think what we need to decide first is, are we going to be seeking citizen comment before we come up with a referendum question, or are we deciding to put the referendum question out and then going just the educational route?
And to
That's gonna determine our deadlines.
And to speak to that, there's nothing stopping us from doing everything we've talked about tonight and holding a listening session on December 17th. We can still do everything else and still have that listening session prior to the council meeting on December 17th.
I mean, I'm in the favor of having a listening session. I don't know that I don't know that I want there to be 40 hours of city staff preparing for that listening session. Maybe leveraging some previous work, maybe just having a legit listening session, just talk about what we want, just have it be, conversational. I'm not sure, some type of format, but I really hesitate not doing anything, because then we don't have the opportunity to say, well, you didn't come to the listening session, and I don't know, you gotta offer it out there. And then I'm for having a listening session, but I'm also for us working on a referendum question, and then also working on, can we put informational flyers in utility bills or tax bills or something like that, just finding a way to hit it from all different angles, but kind of doing all of the above.
Mayor Hammer?
I have no problem with having the listening session, but yeah, definitely need to be working on that question regardless, so that we have, so we're prepared.
I guess the question is, do you want Jason, I, and Paul to take a stab at drafting that question language, or is that something the council wants to have?
I'm good with options being brought forward, but I want there's some, when we at the state government level, when you communicate with the citizens, it has to be at a 5th grade reading level. It's just or are we 3rd now? Maybe we're 3rd. I'm not in communications. I'm an IT nerd in my basement. But anyway, I really do not think referendum questions are at that reading level. And if you're going to, I just really think we need to work on even Middleton's referendum question. A normal citizen doesn't know what a levy is and what that is going to mean for them. We really need to make this question straightforward and what all the citizens can understand. And no offense to you, Attorney Johnson, but we can't have legalese in it. Unless we have to have legalese.
I could not agree with you more. And I'm looking at the city's question that it used, and then I'm looking at Middleton's question that it used.
In 2019, right.
In whatever one this was.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
And that one has got
It's bad.
equivalent runoff unit, and it's okay. I know what that is because Jason has educated me on what that is. Otherwise, I would not have a clue of what that is. So, yeah, you're right. You have to figure out the right words that reach everybody and not just the people in this room.
Yep.
And because you all know what we're talking about because you have to, but nobody else does. I think we made when we did this the first time in Columbus, we made it about as vanilla as we possibly could. and that might have been a mistake to make it too vanilla. Because we didn't get to the urgency of the situation at all.
Yeah.
But somewhere in there is the right,
We need the problem in there, like the problem we're trying to solve. Why are we doing this? If we-
Yeah, I'd definitely like to see a couple different versions of questions for us to be able to do some wordsmithing with.
Jason, would the phrase limit impact of flooding be appropriate to have in the question? Because I think that hits at the nature of why this is important, right? Is that a factual statement? Is most of the stormwater work that we're going to do limit the potential impacts of flooding? Yeah, I know. It's, you know, I
But
think.
if we say that, and then there's another
Well,
2008.
but the question, I mean, here's the issue.
Well, it's
We-
subjective. How do you limit? What's the measurement of limiting? And, you know, the measure of limit is
Reduce
hard.
the impact.
Well, a
of
limit
flooding.
is not a total abatement. A limit is a limit. It reduces.
Because, I mean, I'm thinking
But
of.
reduce means more to some people than others. Are you reducing it 10%, or are we reducing it 50%? Or, I mean,
Any reduction is a reduction.
Right.
yeah.
I'm thinking of the Fireman's Park project, where we've specifically said at the meetings and throughout the discussion that this is not going to eliminate the potential of flooding in the Parkview neighborhood or the adjoining areas. It's going to, it's a part of the solution, it's not the only solution, you know, but it's, obviously these projects are going to have doing a stormwater project has a benefit to the impacts of flooding. It's how you word it in a referendum question to help explain them.
Yeah, but I would argue that there's water quality aspects that are beneficial, and there's all kinds of things in there that, you know, you're not going to get in a dissertation about what this all means, and what's important to one person may not be to another person, right? Maybe water quality is more important. Clean water is like, hey, I'm going to vote for that, but if it's flooding, I live in the hill, I don't care.
But
I'm not voting.
if you guys are going to put together a couple different versions of the referendum question for us, I mean, that's the stuff you could hash out.
Yeah.
No offense, I'm tired, I want to go.
Yeah.
So my question,
I mean, we could just have where you guys come up with some ideas, if those on council have some ideas, I mean, right in my brain, I'm going to go to ChatGPT and I'm gonna tell them to enter me a 3rd grade reading level or 5th grade reading level, referendum question for, I
Yeah,
mean,
it's
work
not-
smart, not hard.
Yeah, and my whole.
There's different options we can go here.
And my whole strategy was find successful referendums that have asked this question, and
I have yet to understand a single referendum question without having to do deep research anytime I've ever voted. And I think that's what I want to avoid, because you have those people that show up that they will read the question on that day with absolutely no research and will vote on it based on that.
but am I hearing the majority is saying, let's go ahead and get this started?
Yes.
yep,
Yeah.
and we'll bring that to the December 17th count.
I do have one thought to add, just because I've been thinking about it. I may be thinking outside the box in the way wrong direction here, but I was actually talking about this with Jack the other night, because the last merit badge that he's been working on is community engagement and being part of, you know, civic process. And one of the questions that he asked was, what is a ongoing local issue that's important to the community, and how do young people get involved? And I mentioned stormwater as something that's been going on since I was appointed to council, before I even won my own seat. And you know, I think that we're not tapping into a good resource by not educating the schools and having the students involved in this process, because some of the places that are really impacted by flooding are all places that student athletes play around town.
Does Rupert Milky have access to the diorama where you pour the water on it and you watch what happens to?
Yeah, I actually think every engineering firm owns one of them. I think we could dig that out of storage somewhere. Put a little dye in it and everything turns blue or whatever, yeah.
You also have all those pictures back from the last couple years of all the bad flooding that we had, I
Yeah.
mean, those are the kind of things we could put on the website.
Yeah, and I do think, to the point, if we're gonna do a listening session, I think to your point, Molly, how we structured them last time was like a 15 or 20-minute intro to discuss some of the issues, and then we open it up for feedback and comment. It'll be pretty easy to pull together something. I think I would probably focus on what's changed since the last referendum. I think that would be important to get out there and have people talk about. You know, we now have adopted the ordinance, but no user fee. I would think that we'd want to talk about the comprehensive plan as a reaction to the failed referendum. I think we'd want to talk about the ongoing efforts that the city is doing to continue to improve stormwater in the community regardless of the fee, and, you know, that there's still a lot more to do, but, you know, it's not that you're just sitting on your hands and ignoring the issue. And so I think those are important things that we could at least introduce, and then those people that are present that want to engage and have opinions and, you know, give us some feedback, I think we could put together that session pretty quickly, I think.
Do you close that public session with the draft of the question to get feedback? So then when we go to COW, we can discuss, hey, this is what we were hearing, and be able to apply anything we learned?
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly work it in. I mean, I would hope we, again, you know, I'd plead for the public, if they're listening, to, you know, engage, because that's only going to be helpful to work through this issue. Regardless of what side you're on, you know, we're willing to listen, and you guys want feedback, so you can kind of direct how to move this forward or not move it forward, so.
Amy, I think you're spot on. Engaging with high school students would be a great thing to do.
Yeah, and sports organizations. Ryan?
Focusing on the bad's good, but we also have to let them know that whatever we would do, we wouldn't prevent 2008. Like, I mean, they need to understand, or we need to understand as a council, 2008 was the 100-year flood. We could have had the best stormwater in the city, and it wasn't going to happen. 2012, we could have maybe mitigated some of it, but it still would have happened. So we have to, focusing on the bad and showing the pictures is fine, but we also have to inform them, we could have had the best of the best of the best. This still would have happened.
Good to know if I get hit by a bus, you're going to keep saying that, because I say it all the time in every meeting. I'm like, we're always going to have flooding. There's always going to be a storm that's going to impact. You know, you're right, 2008, 2012, 17, 18, 20, you know, they roll through here. We see them, you know, and there's a lot of reasons why we have them. And they're all different too, right? And that's education, right? So we can educate people. We've had floods because the ground's been frozen. We've had floods because we've had a heavy snow cover and a really, you know, quick thaw. You know, we've had floods because of just major storms in the summer. You know, there's all different kinds of reasons why, and they all have different, you know, characteristics to that. But yeah, that's just part of understanding that, you know, these will always happen, but, you know, these project improvements will reduce, mitigate, help, you know, these situations.
I just want to piggyback off of something that Matt had said earlier too. We really need council members to be engaging the community, and you're the liaison between the community and the decisions that you make here. We really need you to reach out and bring people into these listening sessions. Like, actively try to reach out to those that have either reached out to you, you heard through the grapevine that they are not okay with it, they're for it, whatever's the case. Like, actively bring people in. That's the only way. And then we need to listen. If we have listening sessions and we bring citizens in and we don't listen, or it's perceived that we're not listening, we will lose all momentum that we're trying to make on listening sessions. So that's my TED Talk.
And I'll add to that, and this is no disrespect to anybody here or anybody that's been here, and Sarah can attest to this too a little bit. We never had a good attendance with the council at those listening sessions, and they were the ones that were directing us to hold them, and Sarah and Shelley were both there, and yet we'd be missing a lot of people. And you know what the public would say is, where's the council, right? And that's what they would ask is, you know, they want to discuss this issue and it's important to them, but they're not here. And so that's perceived. So again, as much as engaging as it's participating too from your chair. So again, just something we've heard and
Yeah.
something we've seen with, past listening sessions, so.
And I've heard that on all the different occasions and community events, and I know I've brought it up before to council. I've heard numerous times, you're the only one on council that shows up, or you and one other person. Like, we need to, you ran for election, we need to show up to this type of stuff, and you need to be there for your constituents and to listen.
Are there any other questions or comments? Matt, do you know what you need to know? Okay. In that case, all that's left is to convene to closed session per 19851G, and I would take a motion for same.
I'll move to closed session.
Second?
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, could I have a roll call, Susan?
Tinkler.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Rostad.
Aye.
Relke.
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
Motive.
Aye.
Hammer.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Thank you to everybody. We will not be coming back on air tonight. Have a good night.